Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Melby Styles, Troy Shuka, Bo Snail, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick, Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Also, below this video there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. With that, I'm going to hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Those are just images, right? Of course they are. I'm answering my own question because there's no rover millions of miles away.
Yeah, a bit of leftover artwork from Star Wars or Star Trek.
It was interesting yesterday when Eli used the Black Swan to debunk space based on their assumed distances with R values that are assumed and debunked by lack of physical horizon. But I thought, I mean, I've always said that, you know, it's the top of the pile because you can use it to debunk the entirety of their claim that Earth's a sphere. But I've never heard it applied. So hearing Eli apply it was like, oh, wow, that's cool. He's muscling
Wait, I
in
missed that.
to
What
use
did
the black.
he say?
Say again, Neil.
I missed that yesterday. What did he say? How did he do it?
He just debunked the fact that they're giving you distances based on assumed radius of Earth and Venus to debunk any claimed, in this case for your example, just so it segues or links together, you know, a claim that they're going to Mars. Well, the distance they're going to travel is based on an assumed R value for Venus and Earth, and that's debunked by the Black Swan. So you can't have that journey because the distance they're presupposing, they don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that is good.
But it takes Black Swan to debunk. It's Black Swan debunking space, and you're like, whoa, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. I liked this thing yesterday or the day before when we were talking to what's that guy's name?
Issa.
Issa, when
Issa
he
Mahal,
used the helium in a tank as opposed to the balloon.
What about it?
When they were talking about weight.
Maybe it's not Issa we're talking about. Maybe we're at cross purposes. Fill us in on the conversation. Don't worry about who said it.
I think he's saying that when you take the actual helium out of the balloon, the container, in a vacuum chamber, the balloon, the container, the rubber part falls down.
And?
The falling down.
Yeah.
What's the
So you're
point?
saying we're trying to
comparing a weight.
Comparing a bonded balloon skin to unbonded gas that will be expanding in all directions.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's also taking the container itself and saying, well, the container itself will go down, go boom, boom. So
what? Yeah.
Which is in a container to create the vacuum.
Yeah. But ultimately speaking, even in a vacuum, the gas is still going to do what gas does. It's just going to stop it being a vacuum. Well, what stops it being a vacuum?
Exactly.
Well, having pressure. Well, why has it got pressure? Well, because the gas has expanded in all directions and is pressing on the walls of the vacuum, making it no longer a vacuum.
Exactly. It becomes your gradient in the vacuum. Nathan, have you talked about the sundial before in the past?
Me?
Yeah, have you ever had that as a topic on your show?
A few times. The sundials have come up a few times.
And how have they gone?
In terms of utilizing it to prove that it would only work on a flat and stationary surface.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It's a long time since I've utilized a sundial to make an argument or had someone propose that it's a proof of a sphere, so I couldn't tell you.
All right, I'm gonna send you 3. I thought it was pretty ingenious, even though the guy's a baller. Let me send you 3. I think I got 3 images. Let me see. He made a sundial to be like a watch.
So what, he just finds north and then points it at the sun?
Yeah.
Or holds it up to
basically.
the sun?
Yeah, go to Master B.
Okay, I've got step 2 on first, is that right?
Yeah, it's labeled whichever way it came.
Step
So
2 parts, okay.
But you can see it. You can see it's, the one. There's one. I mean, scroll through the pictures. I guess and then you can always come back. So one, he's got all the parts on a table. It seems like, and then I've got 2 pictures of the sundial, right? That he put on a wristwatch base.
Okay.
All right. So I read a little bit of what he says in the article, and I'll post that afterwards. Who would want to have a wearable sundial as a part of a time traveler's outfit? And then he said, my sister and I always thought a wrist-mounted sundial would be completely impractical. Not so, although it's still nowhere near as convenient as a normal watch. To have a functioning sundial outside of your garden, you need to know where north is. Also, you need to keep it level. How do you combine a shadow, a compass, and the spirit level and fit it on a wristband? Researching existing sundial designs, one type in particular caught my fancy, the equatorial dial. It can function in any latitude if you know what it is, and some of them actually give you true north when you line them up to read the time. An afternoon later, I had modified design that closely resembled a snow dome. How could I resist? A dial can read to within 5 minutes of local solar time if you etch the components accurately. And then this part I found interesting. Don't worry, this will be over soon, and there's no exam because he wants to go over some math, he said. Everything vital will be covered when you mark out the plastic. Here's the interesting part. If you lived a few hundred years ago, you'd know the Earth is flat and the sun goes around the Earth. While wrong, it's a good starting point. The sun passes roughly the same spot in the sky every 24 hours, so it spends 12 hours above the base plate. We need to divide the dome into 12 equal increments, 1 for each hour. This is the equatorial line. I'll post the article.
Rather than telling us that it's wrong, why not tell us how it's right and it would manifest in his sundial? You know what I mean?
Exactly. I thought it's comical.
It is quite funny. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. I just had fun with it.
Thanks. Brilliant. I love it. Show a couple more pictures before I take them off screen. I'll show his parts list again. Much to it, really. Very good.
It's very similar to the navigation videos where they say, all right, when you use a sextant, we assume that the Earth is motionless and that the stars are moving. It just works better this way. Yeah. What does that mean?
It means it's flat.
Yeah. Because it works better
Like
that
everything.
way.
We're going to measure it as flat. It's just easier that way. Why? Because it's a sphere. It just makes no sense.
It's classic. Oh.
But don't we do the same thing? Like we debunk everything that that the heliocentric model is, but we don't give anything of what we're on.
Well, what do you mean? We don't offer anything back in terms of what the
Right.
dome could be if we had a dome for the containment that we require. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
And
Well, because I was debating with somebody, he wanted me to give him answers of what it is.
say me too. Say you give them me. Give me the answers.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said.
I want them
don't know,
too.
but I know it's not a ball.
Yeah, it's like when they say, "Well, what's the dome made of?" I don't know. I don't know what the sky is. We're in a world where we have a massive amount of deception about what the sky is, and that's the information that's available. So beyond that, am I a sky expert? No. What's that you say? You demand that I tell you what the sky is. You tell me. I will really want to know too. So we're both in the same boat then. We both really want to know what the sky actually is now that we know it's not a vacuum because it stands in violation of natural law. But that doesn't put the onus on me to tell him what it is or her what it is at all. You tell me. I'll put the onus back. Tell me what the sky is now you know it's not a vacuum. I've been asking everybody what you've just found out, right? Well, you were insistent you knew what it was. I've shown that you're wrong and it's not a vacuum. Now you tell me what it is, given that it's not a vacuum like you were just telling me. What do you mean you don't know? What makes you think I would?
Hang on, let me give another rendition of that. Oh, really? Well, we've been lied to. Well, come on, tell me what it is since I've been lied to. I want to know. I can't believe I've been lied to. So why don't you prove it to me? I have so many people doing the same thing. And then one guy, well, not one guy, a few of them, in response to some of my videos on my channel, are requiring me to go all over the earth and prove, flat Earth. And I'm saying, fine, buy me a exploring vessel, which is going to cost about $40 million, and fill it up with enough diesel and
To
give me
prove
enough
it to
time.
them. They expect you to do that investigative work on their behalf because they're so used to being spoon-fed the lie. So now you, new person, new arbiter of truth, you spoon-feed me the lie. Why? I already know that it's flat. Do I care that you don't and you need it proving further? You bugger off and go and do your explorative mission. I'm not interested. I know it's flat.
Yeah, but if I can
But
use
then
the
they turn
fund,
around
hang
and
on,
say
hang on, Neil. If I can use the fundies' desire for me to prove it and fund me a nice explorer yacht, heck, I'll jump on it any day.
Yeah, I mean, I get you. I'd like a yacht too. But none of these fundies are actually going to do that because they're not doing it so that you can have a yacht. They're doing it because they want you to suddenly be the arbiter of their new worldview. It's like, no, I just laugh when you ask me to tell you what your world is. It demonstrates to me how pathetic they are. Oh, what? So you figure out you've been lied to, and suddenly you open your arms to some new bullshit that you can be offered by the next man. Why? Shouldn't that open up your world of possibility for you to figure it out? Do a bit more research, find that there isn't any hint of what it might actually be. Well, if you're then motivated to go and find out what it is, don't put that on the person that's pointed out the lie. All they've done is point out that you've been lied to.
No, the guy I was talking to said, until you can give me an answer, then I'm going to go with the experts.
Good for you.
Experts are lying.
That's okay. So say, okay, good for you. That's nice.
It's like, how can you go back to that when you agree with me that the sky's not a vacuum? You understand all of that. They just can't comprehend how, in other words, they say that these people are experts and all the intelligent, everybody, and all of a sudden we come along as flat earthers and we're smarter than everybody.
But that's what Nathan is saying. There's been spoon-fed by these pseudo-experts. They're under the lie and spell of the pseudo-experts. And here comes a guy who lays floor, or some guy who used to be a salesman traveling around the world, or a farmer, and we say, well, look at the facts here. They're lying. And then
The reality, Neil, is you get to the point where, let's say, in a perfect world, your man, or your example that 10th man's given, your man says, okay, I will fund you. Now, here's your yacht. Now go and do whatever he suggests you need to do. So you go and do it. And then you come back and you present him with whatever he's requested in its entirety without any flaw. And he will turn around, or she will turn around to you and say, but they still say it's a globe on the news. Go to them with this information and make them say different. Because the consensus still thinks it's a globe. You've proven it to me, but that's not enough. because I want the consensus to also be saying it. So I'm in agreement with consensus. I want to have my cake and eat it. I want the whole world to now understand what I understand. Well, why? Why do you want that? Well, because either you need the consensus view to feel comfortable, or you want to be the one creating the consensus view, more likely with a lot of little Hitlers. Well, I'm not that guy. I'm not interested. I don't care what your worldview is. I'm not going to be the arbiter of it. What's that? I must tell you what the sky is. All right. Is that how it works? Come and paint my house. You must. What's that? You pointed out that the paint's flaking off. Well, paint it. What do you mean you won't paint it? All you were doing is pointing out that the water will get through eventually. Well, you paint it then. Seem reasonable? I'm pointing out the world's not as it's been described. Well, now tell me what it is. Why am I suddenly the arbiter of your world? Am I suddenly the master of your universe because I pointed out a lie? That's how pathetic it is. Do you want me to be the arbiter of you? No, they don't. That's the reality, Neil. They don't want you to be the arbiter of their universe. Yeah, they will want you to change the entire world consensus view, or prove it to them to a standard that you can then take to the arbiters of nonsense and get them to change their position. That's what they'll want. And when you get to the point where a couple of them do change their position or discuss it in some detail, that's not enough either, because it's not the entire consensus view. Well, it's still said on the news and on kids' programs that it's a sphere. So, this proof that you went out and got wasn't good enough to convince the world. So we need more. And you go, why? Why? Why are you so keen to make everyone understand what you understand?
Agreed. I get like that sometimes. It's like I really don't care if you change your ideas on everything or not, or believe, or should I say believe, or accept. And then sometimes it bothers me. I do feel like, why are you not getting this?
Well, because you haven't come to terms that some people don't want to get it.
Like Zanuck or Rumpus or this guy, what's his name? Ed. I know that he cannot still believe that we're on a spinning ball. If they come on and after thousands of the show, you still don't know the distance of the sun.
Why shouldn't that? I think he does think he's on a ball. He can't believe that we are even here. He can't fathom it. And when we show him to be wrong, he still holds the cognitive dissonance so that he can retain a bald belief. So I don't believe that that's the case. We're both attempting to divine his thoughts, I might point out. And it really matters not what one man's opinion is in terms of whether or not he believes the Earth is a sphere or not. And that can be expanded out to everybody, Neil. That's kind of my point.
Yeah, but see, what's frustrating about that is if you're going to come on and say something stupid like that, and then you're not even going to give an answer of what the distance is, like it don't make no sense. Like, why are you even coming on then?
Tell us that we're stupid or cowards or whatever he wants to accuse us of being to make himself feel better for a few moments. That's his purpose. Wasn't that obvious? Not here to prove his point. He holds that regardless. He's a fundamentalist.
But he never even said, 93 million miles away. He never said anything about
and as a fundamentalist, he might appreciate that as a fundamentalist, that might leave him having to argue for something that he might not be able to win. But it doesn't mean that he's not going to fight it because he doesn't believe it or understands the contrary to be true. He's in cognitive dissonance with every single one of those points. And the cognitive dissonance leads him to not want to discuss it for fear of the cognitive pain he will experience.
By the way, my prediction went out the window. This guy didn't show up yesterday. I guess he's doing more research.
Hey, Nathan, I'd like to play 2 recordings on what we talked about earlier, how they insist for navigation to work. The sun and stars are moving, but the Earth is motionless, if you don't mind.
I don't, but is it just playing through your speaker?
Yeah.
That's fine. Everyone else needs to be quiet then, because if you talk on G+ when this is playing, it'll blast right out because I have to turn it up.
All right.
So that's fine, but just be aware that you can't talk until it's finished. Wait a couple of seconds, and then I'll adjust the volume, then talk afterwards. Is that okay?
In other words, Neil, shut up.
No, I was talking to 10. No, I wasn't singling you out. I was talking to... No, 10th. After it finishes, don't just say, so, do you understand? Because it will blast the audience out.
Gotcha. First one is 33 seconds. long. The second one is minute 53.
In order to know the GP of the sun, you must know the date and the exact time of day. For conceptual convenience, in celestial navigation, it is assumed that the Earth is motionless and that the sun is continuously moving around it. In the course of 24 hours, the sun travels 360 degrees right around the globe. This means, figure it out, 360 degrees divided by 24 hours, that in 1 hour, the sun moves 15 degrees.
First, assume you are at a specific point on the Earth. The point directly overhead on the celestial sphere is called your zenith. Your latitude and longitude coordinates on Earth are similar to the coordinates of your zenith on the celestial sphere. Conversely, every celestial body has a point on the Earth directly below it. This is called the geographic position, or GP, of the celestial body. Sometimes it is called the subpoint. If you were at the geographic position of Polaris, the star would be directly overhead at your zenith, and you would be near the North Pole. Similarly, if you were at the equator and the sun was directly overhead at your zenith, you would be at the sun's GP. This principle applies to any celestial body: the moon, a planet, a star, or the sun. You are at that body's GP when it is directly overhead at your zenith. Now, at this point, we must introduce the concept of apparent motion between the terrestrial and celestial spheres. Using ancient man's concept that the Earth is stationary, we imagine the celestial bodies on the celestial sphere to rotate from east to west. The rate of motion is 1 degree of arc every 4 minutes, or 15 degrees every hour, or 360 degrees every 24 hours. This rotation introduces another term, hour circle, to help locate these bodies at a given time. It is a great circle on the celestial sphere containing the axis and the given celestial body.
Excellent. Hey, Sleeping Warrior.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
morning.
Or good afternoon, depending on whereabouts you are. I had a lie-in today.
I think you were going to tell us something about yesterday about the Glover car, what the gas pedal and the brake pedals do.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of the word acceleration is defined as a change in velocity, but it doesn't have a direction. The change in velocity can be upwards or downwards in any direction, and that is technically an acceleration. But if you apply that logic to a car control, an accelerator or a brake, the accelerator changes velocity, but so does the brake. So essentially, it means that the accelerator will accelerate the car, but so will the brake. And the brake will also accelerate the car, so will the accelerator. So they become interchangeable words. You can either accelerate the car with the brake or with the accelerator, and both be classed as acceleration.
Yeah, but meanings of words, does that mean that they're true just because that's what it says in said dictionary? Because look at the Coriolis. If you look up what Coriolis means, it's all convoluted.
I know, but meanings of words are important so that we understand what we're talking about. If we
Sure.
communicate with their language and we fail to understand because their language is absent of the correct meaning, then there is an issue.
Yes, that's what the discussion of semantics is. However, if you could demonstrate that what we are talking about in this example, so you're talking about velocity and acceleration, well, kudos, Rumpus, you got your way, didn't you? Because that's in reference to a ball being thrown as opposed to a gas molecule expanding in all directions. That was the purpose, and several of you bit. So let's talk about velocity and acceleration. Well, why would we be discussing that? Well, because we're talking about how a ball behaves. Correct?
Oh, yes.
No, we're not talking about how balls behave, though. We're talking about how gas behaves, and it's not balls. So let's not concern ourselves, because gas expands in all directions at high speeds and has elastic collisions. It doesn't slow down.
They need it to behave like that, though. I want to give my what time have we got? Let's have a look. Yeah, 54. I want to give my gas bottle thing another shout out because I did get to present it, but there was zero discussion on it with Rumpus because he just wouldn't answer it. A 2-litre bottle of pop or a 2-litre bottle of soda. When you leave the lid off, it goes flat after a couple of days, and it goes flat because the gas escapes. You leave the lid on, and the gas doesn't escape, and it stays fizzy. However, when you look into the relative density argument, you can establish some basic facts. And this is what I'm about to illustrate is how gas pressure does not behave like bouncy balls because it violates relative density, because the liquid inside the bottle is Coke that is more dense than the medium that the bottle sits in, which is the air. So essentially, it'll always fill the container from the bottom up. But the gas that's inside the Coke is also more dense than air. So it should never be able to escape if bouncy balls is the analogy for gas pressure, because it would sit on top of the Coke, but it wouldn't ever go anywhere else because it would be sat in a layer above the Coke. So imagine having half a bottle of Coke. The bottle should be filled with carbon dioxide, because if it behaves like bouncy balls, it's not able to go anymore because it's more dense than the air it's in. So it would sit on top of the Coke but below the air because of relative density disequilibrium, assuming that molecules were bouncy balls. But what actually happens, well, it doesn't pool inside the container. Carbon dioxide does not pool inside the bottle of pop. It disperses into the atmosphere in violation of relative density, but it's because gas molecules don't behave like solids. They behave like gases, and they're free to move in all directions at high velocity. So they all pour out of the top. So the simple bottle of Diet Coke proves that gas molecules do not behave like bouncy balls, because if they did, they would fill the inside of the container up and they would never leave. But they do leave, so therefore they are not bouncy balls.
Just for balance, would the same happen in Diet Pepsi?
Yeah, because there are other drinks available. It probably works with Fanta as well. Sunkist, shout out to Sunkist.
Shout out to Coke. I enjoy Coke.
I think that's a great point. I never thought about that like that, but that's good. Good argument.
It is. If gas molecules were bouncy balls, the container, half bottle of pop that you have in your fridge, that would just fill up with carbon dioxide and it would stay pooled there. It'd be dangerous to us because it's, I don't know, I could think of an explanation.
Gaps between it.
Yeah.
It's got gaps. It's going to disperse because the gases can get between them. Same with anything.
Correct.
When they show you sulfur hexafluoride and they show it in a fish tank for a few minutes, it's like, okay, come back in 3 hours. It's got gaps between it.
Well, they have a lid. When you see those sulfur hexafluoride sentences or demonstrations, they always start off with the sulfur hexafluoride in a fish tank, and there's always a lid on top of it. Well, why is that? It's because it disperses over time. It's 6 times more dense than the atmosphere it's in, something like that. So it should never do that if gas molecules were were bouncy balls, because they would always stay there pooled on the floor. Right. And they don't stay there pooled on the floor.
Exactly. Because gases are unbonded. That's the fundamental difference between them.
And
they
continuously
want them to be
moving.
Like bonded bouncy balls, don't they now?
Give them a break. They're running around.
Since gas is unbonded, I'll go with 7-Up and cola.
Do you know what? I watched, with regards to gravity, I watched Liar Liar recently. I don't know if you've seen it recently, but there comes a point where his son says, just one day I wish my dad would not tell lies. So his dad's not allowed to lie for the next day. And he realizes that he's got this thing and he can't lie. So he goes into his office and he sees a blue pen on the table. And he goes up to the pen and he's trying to say that the pen's red and he won't let him say it because he's not allowed to lie. That's the analogy that I had was just like the blurters when you tell them that gravity's not a force and you get them to say it back to you. It's like the pen the pen I hold in my right hand is, and he can't say the word blue.
Yeah, he's also
he can't say the word red. He keeps saying blue. It's like ball earthers. So when you tell them that gravity's not a force, get him to say it back to you. They just can't do it. It's brilliant. Just watching it, just thinking of like flat earth debates. It was ace.
There's also a scene where he's in an elevator and he passes gas and it expands in all directions to fill the availability of the elevator. And he can't deny it, so he leaves the elevator and says, "It was me that caused you to experience gas and entropy."
It's brilliant. Breathe new life into old movies when you realise that everything that we were told was wrong.
Was the elevator going up or down when they came out of the elevator?
Doesn't matter. Entropy was unaffected. Welcome, Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below the video, there is a link to get £50 back for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Sleeping Warrior, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello.
Hey everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Any evidence that we can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, but we can calculate it as if there was a container.
Can you show a physical example of gas pressure without a container, though, in real world?
No, but I can just claim PV equals nRT and then say it's okay.
What's the V bit?
It's a volume, Nathan.
Volume of the container that it would be in, then. Because if that was applied...
Yeah, but according to Professor Dave, he says that you don't need an actual container. An imaginary container is perfectly acceptable.
Right. Well, PV equals nRT would result in the volume calculable for the gas that we're currently breathing. The volume would be the volume of space that it has to fill. And you know what? They've got this thing called space. That would be a space that gas could fill. That would be a V, wouldn't it now? So the gas would fill the volume. And the volume it has to fill would be space. So gas would fill it based on that equation. Because that's the volume, isn't it? Space.
No, Nathan, I insist. Professor Dave said it's okay because we can just calculate it. We don't need an actual volume. I'm going to get you a video to debunk you.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry, let me get this straight. The rebuttal from some douchebag is to say that we can just arbitrarily... Who's making that noise? ULE, please go on mute. ULE, please go on mute. We can arbitrarily assign a container to a random volume that hasn't got any containment around it. but we have definitely got a volume of space for gas to fill already, regardless of an arbitrary assignment of a non-container, because that won't contain gas, will it?
No, I insist. Look, I'm going to screen share, Nathan.
Okay, you insist away.
Screen share. So in this video from Professor Dave, he insists that you don't need to... Let me just make it bigger so you can see it. Need to knock off those subtitles as well.
Don't worry about it.
Well, it's just going over the text. Let me just knock these off. There we go. He says, look, pressure equals force over area. It's just any hypothetical area. He literally says, Nathan, that you don't need to have a physical area. So I'm going to cite Professor Dave to debunk you, and you're now debunked.
But then there would be no pressure if it's not pressing against anything.
No, maths is reality. Maths is true. You can't say the maths isn't work. Are you saying that the maths doesn't work?
It's just virtually pressing on things.
Are you saying that the maths doesn't work, Nathan?
Sorry, you're asking me? I'm saying you need a container for gas pressure. I mean, this might work with this.
No, it works in the maths. We can demonstrate it in the maths.
You've shown me on screen. Right, you've got a block. Looks like a block of wood with the word force written on it, pressing against the surface. Well, gas is unbonded, so it doesn't look like this. So if, for example, you replace that block with gas, it would just go everywhere. It wouldn't push against that one little square. It would go everywhere and fill the volume, the V bit. That's why PV equals nRT has got a V in it and not an A in it.
No, I insist, Nathan. He even says it. I've got the subtitles on screen. He says an area. It's just any hypothetical area. It doesn't have to be a literal solid surface. So you're wrong, Nathan.
Just because he says it doesn't have to be, doesn't mean that you can contain gas without a container. It's a necessary antecedent. So while you say you can hypothetically, that means do it on paper. That's fascinating. Now show me gas pressure without a container beyond your fundamentalist religious assertion that the V of space isn't going to be the V, it's going to be an arbitrary container he imagines on paper.
Nathan, can you prove that without a container there can be no pressure?
No.
Can I prove the negative that you can have gas pressure without a container? In other words, the assertion the globe makes about the globe and its natural law violation, I need to prove that, do I?
Yeah, because you're saying that you need to have a container. So I'm asking, can you prove that without a container there can be no pressure?
Yeah, I got what you did. And I also will give you props for a very, very clever, probably the most clever burden of proof reversal we've had here to date. Excellent work, Anthony.
Just playing the role of a baller.
But that was better than they do it. You almost got it past me.
Well, I think we can conclude that Professor Dave says that you can calculate a container into existence and get a gas pressure. And we say, no, you've got to demonstrate that it's possible, not that you can calculate it, boys. Oh, and in this video, this is a really good video. He's actually calling Professor Robitaille, who's a respectable guy. I'm not saying he's brilliant. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying I disagree with him. Just saying that he's calling this PhD a moron. He actually compares flat earthers to PhDs. So thank you very much, Professor Dave. I've never been compared to a PhD before.
Woohoo! Well, technically, the calculation is correct. It does work. It's just that if you want to put the test to the theory in the physical world, you'll actually need a container in order for the calculation to pan out as it did.
Correct.
Oh, no, I agree that the calculation works out, Arwin, because maths always works out. Even if the maths is wrong, it still works out. Just doesn't match observations in real world. That's the point I was making.
Yeah, it's the distinction between physics, that would be the physical world, and it being demonstrated in physicality, and maths, calculating if you've got a hypothetical container. Well, a hypothetical container doesn't actually contain anything in real world. So calculate this amount of gas. Oh, what's that? It just filled the actual container it had to fill. Yeah, that's why it's got a V in the law. The volume. The amount of space it has.
Hold on, Nathan. Hypothetical containers can hypothetically contain hypothetical gases.
That's correct. Hypothetically, hypothetical containers can, on paper, in maths, in an abstract description of something that doesn't exist in reality, contain gas in abstract maths. That's correct, Darwin. In reality, though, we need a container.
So we don't need to demonstrate it then if hypothetically it works.
Well, hypothetically isn't reality, though.
No, but it's hypothetical. That's okay.
No, it's not. Not if you want to claim that that's your world. and that your world works in violation of an actual natural law that does definitely deal with the physical and natural world, then no, your mathematical abstractions aren't going to cut it, because we've got laws of nature. And this violates that, i.e. a gas not expanding into the V, the volume. Yeah, that volume is space, and gas would expand into it. It's the volume of space it has to fill. And space is a space, making space fake. No, the sky is not a vacuum and availability of V volume for gas to fill, or it would fill it, and we'd all be dead.
Anthony, you know the way that all the gas is being held without the container. How are apparent orbits containing that gas, causing the pressure? How are they doing that?
Apparent orbits of Jupiter, you mean?
Apparent orbits, gravity, apparent orbits, yeah.
How are they? Oh, right. How are
Hold
they?
on.
How are
What's
they
an apparent
containing
orbit?
that gas?
Ah.
Only in the math.
Stop. I need to clarify what Brian's asking. What's an apparent orbit? Orbits are begging the question fallacy. What do you mean apparent orbit? What's apparent about orbits? Where are we observing this?
Well, no, that is the effect of gravity that we will observe, described by Albert Einstein, whose theory of general relativity is the current
hold on. I know it's
description of
described
gravity.
by hold on, Brian.
Professor Dave.
Brian, hold on. I know it's described by Einstein. That's the problem, right? I don't care about the description. I need to know about the manifestation, the physicality of it. That's what I need.
Well, it would only be apparent anyway, Nathan.
Yeah, apparent means seeing it. Where's it apparent?
Well, it's in these maths. Supposedly we can see it somewhat.
It's in the maths.
Where can we supposedly see orbit?
Just like the geometric horizon. Yeah.
Sorry, hold on.
Yeah,
right.
well, I mean,
guys,
obviously...
please. Where are we seeing bodies of mass falling around other bodies of mass in this presuppositional description of orbit? Where are we observing? Where is it apparent, please?
I have to get back to you on that one. I'm not sure where we actually see that. But the claim that gravity is causing a pressure gradient means that apparent orbits, that I don't know where we see them, I have to get back to you and say, but apparent orbits, wherever they happen, are causing a pressure gradient.
Hold on. A pressure gradient is an assertion that gas go down, go boom, boom, like bouncy balls poured into a fish tank. So again, we talked about hooray for PhDs being compared to flat earthers, but when you've got PhDs like Thunderfoot Clown asserting that gas go down, go boom, boom, like bouncy balls poured into a fish tank, and that assertion, i.e. they're pulled down with gravity, gives you the differential and gas pressure gradient, that's an assertion that gas go down, go boom, boom.
Well, no, Professor Dave obviously is invoking gravity, and I'm just keeping up to speed with the current description of it, which is apparent orbits. That's why I was asking Anthony how the apparent orbits, create the pressure.
Somehow you've managed to bring us back here, Brian. I don't know how you've done it, but kudos. So did we just do this? Apparent orbit? Where's it apparent again?
Well, it means that we would see it.
I know what apparent means.
Hey, you're begging the question. Come on.
Look, I know. I'm not going anywhere with this.
Brian's trying to say.
Yeah, I'm just stating the current gravity. So if they're claiming gravity is causing a pressure gradient, I'm just asking Anthony, like how apparent orbits that we don't see, but we would see them because they're apparent if they happened. How that's causing a pressure gradient, because gravity is not a force. Sorry, never mind me. I don't have an answer. With, I don't have an answer. I'm just keeping up the speed with pseudoscience.
I don't have a birth. I think 10th man was trying to get it through. 10th, go ahead.
What everybody observed here was an honest person trying to double speak, and he couldn't.
Yeah, he did struggle. Anthony did better than Brian, it's got to be said. It's not in his temperament. Brian's too nice a person.
Anthony's a lawyer.
I'm just demonstrating how they double speak it and flip the burden of proof or calculate into existence stuff just applying some of the tactics that they use to explain away why they can't have this demonstration of gas pressure without a container. And the answer is because you can't do it. It debunks their model, but they won't accept it. They'll do anything.
It's that word calculating, right? It's almost like another one of their hypnosis words, right? We just say we calculate this, and all of a sudden, it's true. Like, that wasn't any more true for me until I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say, we know we went to the moon because we calculated how much fuel they would need to go to the moon.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it's like saying, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It's like saying we know unicorns are real because we've calculated the digestive tract of a unicorn and how many calories it burns, and therefore how much food it would utilise. Therefore, therefore we prove a unicorn.
Wouldn't they have used the R value to calculate the?
Yes. And I hope this happens more.
Needed that, but
they really sent a man to the moon because they have weighed how much food he had to take with him.
Yeah, it's easy to just let him get the statement out. Adam, please can you repeat that? Because I'm going to give props to Eli in a minute for using Black Swan to debunk space, which you're about to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, if they were going to do that, then all of the calculations would have been orbit-based, and therefore, intrinsically, at the heart of all of that, they would have to use the R value.
Correct. Black Swan, baby. Debunking space with Black Swan. I absolutely love it. Props to Eli who did it yesterday. And I was left in stunned amazement. I'm like, man, no need to even go to gas pressure without a container. Absolutely brilliant argument, but he didn't even need it. And neither does Adam. I love it. Right, quick shout out to Godzilla who gave me the comparison a moment ago for the unicorn. So thank you, Godzilla37, for the super chat first and foremost. What's harder to quote unquote prove? The globe model or a unicorn? Question mark. At this point, I'd say unicorn, because a rhino with a bit of paint will get it done.
I'd just like to say on a more serious note, though, all jokes aside, any mention of gravity in any way, shape, or form from here on in, as far as I'm concerned, is apparent orbits, as that's how it was described by Albert Einstein in his theory of general relativity, which has been the mainstay, currently held description of gravity by mainstream science since 1915.
Right. The bending of space-time would give you those orbital mechanics. That's correct, Brian. And they're taking what is described as a begging the question fallacy assumption of orbits into a conceptual medium to describe them with Einstein. That's precisely right. Yes, that's right.
What? But that makes no sense. I thought that orbital mechanics were Newtonian in nature.
Yep. No. They've been transposed into...
calculate an orbit.
Hold on, Arwin. Yes.
When
God,
Einstein
Arwin,
calculations can't use more than one source of gravity.
Yeah, maybe ask the question, then let Brian actually answer it.
Go on, Arwin. Ask the question.
Well, I'm surprised. What does Einstein have to do with orbits? Because I thought that Einsteinian mathematics don't allow you to even calculate for more than one source of gravity, which is what an orbit is. It's supposed to be exactly that. Two bodies.
Yeah, but he stated as apparent orbits.
What does that mean?
It means
not actual.
Not actual. Yeah, it would appear.
Oh, good. So he can't actually calculate it. Well, let's just not go there then. Why don't we stick to Newtonian mechanics because it can calculate?
No.
Right?
Stop. With Einstein, they do actually give a visual demonstration of this. They literally reify fabric of space into fabric of bendy material, and they drop a bowling ball on the middle and call it the sun, and then they roll a ball around it and say that bent fabric of space-time is what causes the orbits, when they describe it with visual reification of fabric of space as fabric of material.
But hold on, that's not a calculation, that's a visualization, that's a metaphor, that's not actually showing you it.
Yeah.
No, but that's still incorrect. What they show is still completely incorrect. That is not the bending of space-time.
No, I know.
Because what that does show is that all the balls that they throw around, they all accumulate in the middle, like they're going down a plug in a sink. Now, obviously, if that was true, then we would all be sucked in by the sun. But they say it's because they can't maintain the velocity, and there's too much friction in the material slowing it down. So you've just got to imagine it continuously holding its velocity. That's what they say.
That's incorrect. Special relativity, space-time is flat. General relativity's uneven distribution of mass causes the curvature of space-time. So the very center of the globe Earth, and the very center of the moon, and the very center of the sun would all be in direct alignment, but they all have their own gravity well. That's what that is. So that's actually a false equivalency, what they're showing. And they try to explain it that way then because they fill in the blanks that Albert Einstein left it there for them to fill in. Or they just don't understand what he's talking about, which is very likely too.
Sure. But ultimately, we're talking about a description of something that's occurring in a medium that doesn't exist. Pseudo four space isn't somewhere that we exist in. So all of these Einsteinian descriptions, regardless of how right or wrong the reification when they show kids bent fabric, is irrelevant because it's not a place that actually exists. This is being described in a non-real place by maths. So what? Because we can describe it in the non-real place, it makes it applicable? No.
Yeah,
one of those.
The only reason, sorry lads, just the only reason I brought up the apparent orbits thing is that is the actual description from Albert Einstein for what gravity is. The only description he gave for what gravity is, which is the bending of space-time, is that we would observe apparent orbits. So when people are trying to ask questions, let's say, about if we throw a ball up in the air, will it be accelerating down the way and up the way, and stupid stuff like that, when they're trying to infer gravity as a force of attraction between masses, or any other nonsense they're trying to infer with mathematics. No, Albert Einstein stated that gravity, the effect of the curvature of space-time, is from an observer's point of view, it would play out as an apparent orbit. That's it.
So basically,
that's what gravity is. Sorry.
So Brian, what you're saying, it's the if P then Q. So he's putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter what else they say because gravity at present is an apparent orbit for the observer.
Thank you, Brian. Right. Just do a quick shout out to Bobby Zines, who says, off topic, but have you ever noticed how a T-Rex skeleton looks like a whale with legs bodged on? Keep up the good work, people. Maybe check out JLB Dino Hoax on his website. He's also got a couple of videos about it on his now revived channel. I think it's called JLB Podcasts. So he's actually gone out and looked at the archetypes. I've forgotten what they call them. There's a particular name for the little bits of wood that they pull out of the ground, and holotype specimens, I think, is the correct terminology. They've got very, very small fragments of these, what they claim are bones, and JLB went to the middle of Australia to go and see them. The bits that have then formed into plasticasts, extrapolated out from, and then formed into these giant structures that are on displays in various different museums. So feel free to check out JLB's information on Dino Hoax. Not something I particularly cover. One of the first things I covered, because my wife was actually the one interested in it, and she dragged me along to the British Museum to go and have a look at some of the claimed to be bones and skeletons that they had on display, because she picked up on the Dino Hoax just as I was picking up on Flat Earth. But there we go, that's just a different subject, but I do appreciate the super chat, Bobby Zines. Thank you very much indeed.
Dinosaurs are real because we have fuel.
So
we have fuel?
Instead of saying
fossil fuel, yes? Did you say fuel?
Yes.
So instead of saying scaredy cat, we now have to say petrified.
Dinosaurs have become fucking oil. Excuse my French, sorry. Just found that quite funny.
So do I.
I just filled up my car with some dinosaurs this morning.
I think it's nonsensical in the extreme to think that a Pakistani whale dog can transform into a tin of Castrol GTX.
Well, it's proven if you go to an accident scene and your car T-boned somebody, it's proven.
They do actually use, I think it's called ambergris, but there's a certain type of whale oil, it's also used in perfumes, that they used to add to certain types of engine oil to stop knock, and then they banned the hunting of those particular whales. I think it's beluga whales. So for a time there was no, I don't think it was actually. I think it was to stop knock in gearboxes. That's why they put that particular whale oil additive. So to say, well, no, whale oil, no connection there. Well, not necessarily true, actually. But there we go, just a minor bit of trivia.
It was Pakistani whale dog. It hadn't become a whale yet.
Oh, I missed the dog bit. That completely invalidates everything I've just said. Thank you, Adam. I wish I paid more attention. The whale dog. Yeah, right, whatever.
It was still roaming the hills in Kashmir at that point. It hadn't gone down to the sea.
As a devout
And
Hindu,
evolved
I
into
actually
a
find all
whale.
this quite offensive. Okay, so can we cut it out?
Hang on, is that why you walk your dog every day, hoping to see that occur in your lifetime?
No.
Just to get back on.
That's John's primary, one of his primary quotes, isn't it? Is the evolution of the whale. If you look at it, then the fundamental precursor is a dog-like creature from the hills of Kashmir. Yeah, hence the Pakistani whale dog. Quote.
Cue the South Park clip where he's talking about a retarded monkey shagging a frog or something. Anyway, just to get us back on track, any scientific evidence of gravity, as we've dragged out the nonsense double speak about pseudo force space being apparent orbits. Okie doke. Scientific evidence for gravity, anybody at all?
Apparent orbits? Would that prove it?
That's scientific evidence, is it?
Oh, no.
So, Brian, would you agree that when Einstein's describing these apparent orbits, we would call that perspective, because it's where we see what appears to be train tracks that disappear off into the distance appear to meet, but never actually meet. But because of perspective, they do. When we see something going across the night sky and it appears to form a change in its apparent appearance relative to its actual state, we'd call that perspective, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So basically, if you apply what Einstein says with regards to the uneven distribution of mass, not in the curvature of space-time context, but apply it in the real world, you end up with relative density. Einstein must have been a flat earther. He must have been.
Got a question for Brian. If I can on this, it's bugging me now. So, apparent orbits, and that's from our viewpoint, yeah? So, the mechanics of Mars, Venus, Jupiter will translate to us on Earth viewing them as apparent orbits. Yeah?
Yeah, correct. With us in a heliocentric system falling around
in
the
reality, we don't see the wandering stars giving us apparent orbits. We see them with retrograde motion.
Correct.
So, therefore, it's not an apparent orbit, or is it an apparent retrograde orbit that?
Hold on. Do you observe that occurring, or is it something that occurs the following night in terms of its positional data?
Yeah. Well, the point I mean, does the model predict that behavior, or does it just predict orbital behavior? Was the point in Einstein's? Because obviously, what you observe and what you then interpret are two different things.
Correct.
So I'm asking whether the apparent orbit is apparently inclusive of that observation as well, or if it just accounts for star behavior as we would understand it, not necessarily the wandering.
Well, I'm more keen to explore because I've waited for the whole discussion for someone to bring this up. I was hoping it'd be a glober. The orbital section, or apparent, or seeing it bit. Do you observe this? I'm going to use my word carefully. Motion in the night sky. Is that actually being observed to quote unquote orbit? Is that actually what you watch happening?
No, it's not. You never see it. It changes. Tomorrow night it'll look different than tonight, but you won't see the change happening.
So we're not.
You observe a small amount of travel, don't you, in the night sky of the star? You see a small amount of rotation around your viewpoint of it.
Rotation?
Well, yeah. Rotating above my head, yeah.
No, not that rotation. I'm talking about orbital rotation.
No,
That's assumed to be observed, apparent, visual. We see it. Those are all the words you just used. Now, we've got past the conclusion. Brian's already made it. I don't know if Brian wants to repeat his last statement so I can actually conclude.
Yeah, we see something tonight, and tomorrow night it looks different, but we don't see the actual thing happening.
So we don't actually observe orbits then?
No.
So they're merely a presupposition based on an extrapolation, based on an observation of the night sky and then an observation of the following night sky. Its pattern extrapolated out into this assumption of orbit, correct? So we're not watching it actually happen then. It doesn't actually happen at all. We don't have orbits anywhere.
Well, with the exception of the sun and moon around the top of our heads, I don't know of anything.
So is that the sun and moon falling, or in the case, sorry, I've got to break them down now, the moon falling around a spherical Earth and an Earth and moon system falling around a spherical sun? Is that what is being, and I use my words carefully, observed to happen, Brian?
No, we don't observe that.
Right. So we don't observe orbits then. It's merely a presupposition begging the question fallacy.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Right. Anybody who's heard me in the chat going, yeah, orbits begs the question, and they just hand wave it. No, it doesn't. Yes, it absolutely does. Show me orbits.
I think is the point you're making, Nathan. Einstein's a cheeky scrote. Look at him begging the question here.
Yeah, assuming orbital mechanics.
Yeah, well, he's saying it will be an apparent orbit. Yeah. So in saying so, he's yeah, I suppose it is a mechanics.
Yeah,
anyway.
You've used his language, and he's saying the word apparent. Well, apparent means you'd see it. Well, when you get to actually down to the nitty-gritty of what you actually see, do you actually see it being an orbit? And the answer is no.
So it's not an apparent orbit, you see.
Exactly. Not apparent. We're not seeing it happening. It's not a phenomena to study. Oh, well, it looks different the following night, and if I track that as though it had moved in an analog linear fashion, then it's in a moving orbit. Well, no, because you'd see it moving around it. And we don't. But you extrapolate out from the following night's data that that's what it's done to move into that position, moved in an analog fashion. Well, it hasn't. It's presented itself in a very digital fashion now, hasn't it? It moved, it was in one position, then it's in the next. Like a digital clock. Doesn't have a hand that moves from one position to the next in a sweeping motion. That would be analog. It starts in one position, like a number 9 on a clock moving to a 0. The next digit along. There's no in between. Well, that's what the stars do.
Yeah, there are some claims from some of these Jesuit astronomers and stuff that there's moons orbiting around things like Jupiter and stuff like that. But we never see any of that.
Right, it's an extrapolation. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear from a globehead. Yeah, we've got there on our own with a lot of jokes in between, which is fine. But, you know, that's what I was hoping that we would get. Somebody saying, yeah, we do see them. Let's look at this light in the sky. Okay, is it moving in an orbital motion? No, it is not. Well, the following night, it's in this position. And?
Well, could any of these people that are on our opposition side, can they actually show us a video? Like we have 4K and 8K video. Now, can they show us a video of these orbits?
What use is that when the video is going to come from a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum? Or we get what we already know, which we can take ourselves.
But that's what I mean. I mean, like a video from the ground of this thing supposedly happening.
It doesn't happen though, does it?
No.
Right. So what's next? Give us a picture of it happening from a second law of thermodynamics sky vacuum? No.
No, we won't be accepting that.
Probably is already out there. Video from space of showing something falling around something else. Probably in existence.
Yeah, they'll never be able to give you show you an orbit from the ground looking up, because it doesn't happen. They can only show it to you as a cartoon-like video made in a sky vacuum that doesn't exist.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No, but if we make a couple of assumptions, we can calculate it.
Well,
I hear that a lot
the
these
sun is
days.
at a different part of the sky each day, so there's no. You wouldn't even. You'd have to measure it every day for a whole year, even if you could.
No, we can just assume a couple of things and then we can calculate it. It's fine.
Okay, sorry, we can do that.
Yeah, you hear that word calculate? It's like abracadabra.
Yeah.
It's also
Yeah,
like
sorry.
assumption. Assumption is like it's like what's the word? It's like the poisonous ivy to us, isn't it? It's like kryptonite to us. It's like you're pulling out an assumption. How dare you?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I should have remembered we can calculate and assume it.
Well, the heliocentric.
Just going to say, make the assumption. Just make the assumption, calculate it into existence, and then we're living on a ball in a heliocentric model.
Yeah, I'll dovetail from that. The heliocentric model only works with their calculations, which cannot be proven in reality.
Well, wouldn't a better question be for the? I never mind.
Okay. If it's never mind, I'm going to use that opportunity to do a couple of shout outs, because typically when I do members only chat, or when I first started, there's less than 100 people members. Now there's more than 100 people members, and they're chatting away quite happily while this live stream's going on. So I'm going to shout out a few of them. Shout out to Guns and Navarone, Colin Dresser, Arwin, who's a mod, Godzilla, who's been super chatting. Colin, thank you very much indeed for all your comments. Same goes for Godzilla. David Reed, good to have you, my friend. Really appreciate the support. Thank you for becoming a member. Again, Chris Berry, Godzilla. Is that Plunder23? Nice to see you. Good to have you. Tip of the day. Thanks for chatting away. What else have I got? Have I missed anybody? David Reed, tip of the day. Unicorn Laser Eyes. Good to see you all chatting away. It's nice that the flow of the chat is still good, even though it's members only most of the time now. So shout out to everyone in the chat. Really good to have you all.
Don't forget Bible Literalist.
Bible Literalist's a mod. But shout out to Paula.
Once she's there.
I'm shouting out the members. Anyway, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics, as we're very much into this subject at the moment?
Not yet.
You're not leaving anything for me to say, Neil.
Not yet.
We're asking for science for the globe. Not even completed methodology, just hypotheses. Got to be something, right? God, the
Yeah, I
days
wonder
of...
if any. Sorry, Nathan.
I was just going to say, the days of people barking Cavendish experiment in quotes at us is obviously well long gone now.
Oh, and I thought you would have came up with something by now. That's why I say not yet.
When Baldwin is quiet, you leave him alone.
I heard Fight the Flat Earth yesterday. I heard Fight the Flat Earth recently in his hangout with Level is Flat or Flat Water is Flat or something. He's got a name like that. And he still cites Cavendish experiments as scientific evidence for gravity, proof that gravity, well, is a thing. Still cites it.
You expect them to accept it?
He'll just cite it to deceive his audience and think that it's okay.
Do you think he still believes it's a scientific experiment? Or he's just deceiving his audience?
He's deceiving his audience. He knows it's not.
Just real quick, going back to
really dumb.
Going back to Brian and this apparent orbit shit that Einstein was predicting for his general theory of relativity. Was that supposed to be his, I guess in quotes you could say, hypothesis for that?
But he didn't.
And I use it loosely in quotes, right? Like obviously it's not a real hypothesis, but was he saying that that's what we would observe if this was a thing?
What he said was, when he said the uneven distribution of mass causes the effect of the curvature of space-time, the curvature of space-time was then called gravity. Now, I don't know.
No, that's not what he said. Not what he said.
What the
So
hell
the
does
curve-
uneven distribution of mass mean anyway?
Let's not get into it. It's just Brian's
Just
trying
means
to make.
randomness.
Okay, just let Brian make the end of his point, though.
What Einstein actually said was the uneven distribution of mass, right, causes the curvature of space-time. And the bit that Brian got wrong was he said that it causes gravity. No, the uneven distribution of mass causes the curvature of space-time, which we perceive as an acceleration. But it isn't actually an acceleration, as the geodesic paths remain straight. That's what he said.
Okay.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. Nathan, you want to say something before I go?
No, I want you to carry on, Brian.
Okay. I'll start again. What I said, Anthony, was that Einstein said that the uneven distribution of mass causes the effect of the curvature of space-time. And the curvature of space-time was then called gravity. Or gravity was then called the curvature of space-time.
That wasn't what he said. That wasn't what he said. That is right, but that's not what he said.
Okay.
That's why I picked you up on it. You didn't say it properly, but it's fine. It's good.
Okay, fine. Okay. Paraphrasing aside, there's presumably a point beyond that, though, isn't there, Brian, that you're trying to make, right?
Yeah, it's that. Where I was trying to go with it is that it's been claimed that he said that the curvature of space-time is gravity. Now, I haven't heard him say this. I don't know for definite if he said that, but that's what has been claimed. Now, when he spoke about the curvature of space-time, he spoke about how we would observe apparent orbits. So that means if gravity is the curvature of space-time, then gravity is from our position as a described effect, apparent orbits.
So my words don't apply. Is right. So the definition of Einstein, that general relativity, and I quote, this is quotes, the effect of the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass, end quote. He then elaborated and said, although the geodesic path remains straight, the apparent perception of a curvature, of a curved trajectory, is only by the observer. That's what he said. So what he's saying is, whatever's the night sky is, he's saying that everything's moving in straight lines, as if it's like a Pac-Man model, right? That's what he said. Now, we perceive curvature, but I don't know how that translates into anything else, but we perceive a curve that isn't actually a curve, it's a straight line, because the geodesic path remains straight. That's what he said.
Yeah, but you said that I was wrong to say that the curvature of space-time is claimed to be gravity. That is what's claimed to be gravity.
It is, yeah, but you said causes gravity, and it doesn't.
I didn't say causes gravity. I didn't say
yes,
causes
you did.
gravity.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
I
Important.
didn't say that. Let me say it again. Hang on, Aaron.
Hold on, Arwen. Let Brian defend his position, but it doesn't really matter. I don't want this bit specifically to drag out, but go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. What I said is the uneven distribution of mass causes the curvature of space-time. And the curvature of space-time is called gravity, or gravity is called the curvature of space-time. That's what I said. I didn't say it causes gravity.
Fine.
You did. I'm going to go back and get it just to show
fine,
it.
Fine. We can deal with it another time. Arwen, go ahead.
Yeah, so Einstein gravity, what is what? How does it do things? So what is his hypothesis exactly for gravity? Because I talked about gravity as a concept, about what I think could be defined as gravity, blah, 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 but I never actually claimed the hypothesis for it. So what was Einstein's hypothesis for gravity exactly?
Great question.
That's kind of like what my question was. Like, I was trying to establish what was this, because this is touted a lot of times as a scientific theory, right? And that would require a scientific method. So we would do hypothesis, experiment. Now, there is an experiment that sometimes, well, I use that extremely loosely, that's touted as being the cowbell for this crap, right?
Cavendish.
Well, I know his hypothesis. I know what Einstein's hypothesis was.
Okay, just let Chocolate finish.
No, but I'm talking about what's touted as the validation for this crap.
Go ahead, Brian.
You guys.
What is it?
Hold on. Go ahead, Brian.
Yes.
Yeah, The hypothesis was that we would see one second, Nathan, I'll get this right in my head. That we would see stars bending around the sun. That was his hypothesis. That was his prediction.
What?
That was his prediction, yeah.
And then when was that?
Eddington
hold
in
on.
1919.
No.
So
Stop. Hold on, Brian.
Oh.
Thank you. We've got his. That's not a prediction, though, isn't it? That's saying I expect a phenomena to occur. A prediction would be the presumed cause of that effect, though. If you're going to claim that that's an effect that's going to happen, then a hypothesis would be the presumed cause of that effect.
Yeah, but the cause was the curvature of space-time. That was his hypothesis, that space and time apparently curve to give us the effect of a star bending around the back of the sun.
Sure, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that's asserted then as a cause and effect relationship. Well, for it to be scientifically valid, if it's going to claim that that's a phenomena, an effect, and the cause is described as the bending of space-time, well then, how do you vary and manipulate this concept of space-time? Well, to be an independent variable, first and foremost, you've got to be real. You're also the presumed cause of the effect. But most importantly in this example, you've got to be able to vary and manipulate it to validate that it is actually the cause of the effect. So just saying, I create a concept, and that's the cause of this phenomena I observe, well, no. You've got to vary it and manipulate it. What's it that Anthony says? You've got to wiggle it? What? Show me space-time,
but it's not.
then show me it wiggling.
It's not even the phenomenon he observed. Who was the one that observed this supposedly?
Even if it is, though, that's fine.
And how long ago after? How long after that? The Einstein was that?
Einstein was 1915. The curvature. His theory of general relativity came out in 1915. So it's 4 years later. So it was a prediction. He made a prediction that this was happening.
So what you're saying is his quote
prediction
unquote
that would happen, right? Predicting that something's going to happen is like saying, I know that the clock on my hand, the hand on my clock is going to move to the next position. I predict that will happen. It's like, no, number one, if you've got something actually occurring, yes, you've got a phenomena. But that's not a prediction, because in science, a prediction is the prediction of the cause of that phenomena, not predicting that the phenomena is going to occur at a certain time.
And then that phenomena occurring 4 years after the prediction was made. So that's not even a valid scientific theory, because the guy who came up with the theory definitely didn't make an experiment, but did he even have the observation that he said he was going to predict? And that's 4 years after the scientific theory of this nonsense. It's crazy. So in other words, general theory of relativity is not a scientific theory with any experimental validation. That's
Perfect.
just my claim.
Took the words out of my mouth, chocolate. Exactly. So when they say theory, no, it's not a scientific theory. Predicting that something's going to occur, saying I can predict that if I go to wherever you've got boiling hot springs, I'll see boiling hot springs. There's my scientific prediction. Now I'm going to make a bullshit reason why it happens. Well, no, that's not how it works. Predict the cause, validate it by varying it and manipulating it and seeing if it actually causes it. Not invent something that isn't real and attribute it to the effect in pseudo-4 space. A conceptual medium that doesn't even exist.
This is where the cockerel that John cites is worth citing, because every day the cockerel crows just before sunrise. So you think that the cockerel crowing is the cause of sunrise, and then one day you go down and blow its head off and kill it, but the sun still rises. So therefore you conclude that the cockerel did not cause sunrise. It happened anyway, so it was a correlation, but it wasn't a cause.
Yeah, seeing something happen, I see the sunrise. Well, in pseudo-4 space or in Nathan 5 space, it's because of swamp gas from Venus that causes that to happen. Here's the maths. Well, that doesn't prove a damn thing.
You said Nathan 5 space.
Yeah.
Do we rattle through a few more housekeeping questions, or do we want to stay in space and pseudo-4 space and gas go down, go boom, boom?
So
I'd like to say one more thing about it. Sorry, Neil, you're going to say something?
was going to say, it sounds like it's all a bunch of crap to me.
Of course it is. He invented geometry because he knew that if he applied the uneven distribution of mass into the real world, you would get acceleration that we now call relative density, disequilibrium. But that is the problem when he applies it to the real world, because that's what we see. He would have debunked gravity if he'd applied it in the real world. So he, rather than apply it in the real world, he applied it in space-time and then gave us orbits instead. It's clever. He knew.
Yeah, but what
Where
happened
do we
there?
see these orbits?
We don't.
We don't.
Make them up.
Hold on. Go on, Brian.
Thanks, Nathan. What happened was they couldn't. This is ironic that they couldn't explain the orbit of Mercury. Right. So Einstein's theory of general relativity supposedly explains the orbit of Mercury. So the whole thing is starting from a begging the question premise. It all started from a begging the question premise, and his predictions were just happened to be, not really, but happened to be validated by Eddington 4 years after his theory came out. That's really all that happened. And they didn't, the whole Eddington thing is, they never validated what actually caused it. They never validated that it wasn't refraction, but it didn't matter. All they wanted was something to hold on to, some confirmation bias.
You've got to be careful when talking about the orbits of Mercury and Venus, because blurters lie by omission. They refer to it as retrograde motion, but its actual name is apparent retrograde motion, because it can be apparently described with the heliocentric model. But the fact that they call it officially the apparent retrograde motion tells you that there's something else there that is actually causing this perception. But they want it to be explained by heliocentrism, but they call it's basically their way of telling you an embedded confession. It's apparent retrograde motion supporting heliocentrism. But what is it actually? If it's apparent retrograde motion, there's something else going on. So just watch for them talking about retrograde motion.
If there's something going on at all, Adam, you still there?
Yeah.
Do we observe retrograde motion apparent?
No, we don't ever appear to see the stars going backwards. However, their position the following night, it appears to be retrograded to where it was the previous.
Let me get it straight. When you assume orbital motion based on a perceived digital perception of the movement of the stars translated into an analog orbital motion, there's a problem with the way they calculate it. That problem manifests in them not being able to accurately calculate this claim to be apparent but not actually seen retrograde motion moving in a direction that it shouldn't be. What was it called in the previous model? There was another name for it. I can never remember this. It didn't used to be called retrograde motion. Damn, it'll come to me.
I don't know, I've not heard it.
Another description of retrograde motion when they weren't planets, they were wandering
it
stars.
It came from astrology. Well, the term I'm looking for, Nathan. I'm trying to remember it myself.
Can't remember. It doesn't matter. The point is that when you assume that they're traveling in an orbital motion, the calculations themselves, not even the maths, works. But we don't actually observe this for it to be a problem in the first instance. It's only a problem if you're assuming that their motion is as they describe with orbital mechanics. Well, that's not a problem because it doesn't actually happen. We don't observe it. It's just an assumption based on an extrapolation from what they observed one night and then compare it to what they observed the next. They're not actually seeing this claim to be apparent retrograde motion. It's not apparent. Now, you're saying, well, they say it's apparent because it's a problem. No, apparent means appearing. Actually seeing it. No, we don't see that, though. It doesn't happen. It's just a problem in their maths when they assume orbital motion.
All their knowledge about what's happening in the stars all comes from astrology that was detailing what goes on up in the sky from a geocentric and flat, actually, originally point of view. So they've had to wrap a mathematical model around all that. That's what they've had to do, because all the most famous people in the most famous people, astronomers in the global rhetoric, you have Kepler and Galileo. Both of them were astrologers, and so was Brahe. Wasn't heliocentric; he was geocentric, but he was an astrologer too. It all comes. They hate things like astrology, and they hate things like religion, but the whole model comes from astrology and from Jesuit Catholicism.
Right.
And Catholics.
It's a philosophy, is I think the point Brian's making.
Yeah, because it all starts with astrology, because back at the time of Brahe and Kepler and Galileo, to learn astronomy, you learned it through astrology. Astrology was number one, astronomy was number two. And I've heard ballers, they wouldn't, I said that to them, several of them, the well-known ones, and they didn't actually believe it. But what they then tried to say that, well, they only learned astrology just so they could learn astronomy. But that's not true either, because Kepler, and I think Galileo as well, but Kepler was definitely, he was renowned for making astrological birth charts for people and things like that. He did this on his spare time. This is something he did. He was like so into it. Now, I'm not being an advocate for astrology. I'm just saying that astrology is where astrology that came from someone on a stationary Earth, and a stationary flat Earth originally, is where all the knowledge of what's going on in the stars, like they call it retrograde motion and all this, that all came from astrology. So when the ballers harp on about it now, they're actually talking about astrology without even knowing it.
Yeah, astrology is just the logic of the stars' movements.
Yeah, you look at it and you say, it looks like it's doing this. That's all you can do now.
I'm going a bit quiet because I'm desperately trying to find the name of what it was called before retrograde. I just can't find it. It's not going to come back to me either in this live show, I don't think. Something for the comment section. Let us know in the comments what retrograde was called prior to them being planets. When they were called wandering stars, there was a name for retrograde that wasn't retrograde that eludes me. So if you can let me know in the comments, I'd be very grateful. Any point going through a couple more housekeeping questions? Self-perpetuating molten iron core?
Don't you hate it? Don't you hate it when your words go backwards?
Molten iron core, anybody? Self-perpetuating? Got a picture of Thea smashing into Earth in the story that they made up.
No, we just need P waves and S waves, and then we can calculate it.
I've got the backstory on screen.
Go on then, give us the backstory.
There it is. It's Thea smashing into Earth at a glancing blow so that it deposits its molten iron core into Earth. Doesn't destroy Earth, and the debris from Thea coalesces into what we now call the moon, which is why the moon is basically the same as Earth. But that's why we've got an extended longevity to our molten iron core. And it hasn't already, based on the time frame they give for the heliocentric system, disappeared and got cold already. Because we've got an oversized one. Well, we've got an oversized one because Thea smashed into Earth because it was on a predetermined orbital path of destruction. But fortunately, it was only a glancing blow. And that's true because they made it up themselves.
Well, that's moon rocks. That's why the moon rocks the same thing on Earth.
You don't hear me giving Nathan the theme song? It's Star Wars, the background while he tells the story.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to add that. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Does that make it more believable?
I just thought you left your mic open and you were working again, Chocolate.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That was actually purposed.
Right, with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, or joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 back for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Agrees. There's not much point in coming in if Rumpus in is, yeah.
You moaning about Rumpus?
Neil was just saying that he thought that Samurai was going to come back yesterday, but he didn't. The guy, Sam.
Oh, the guy who was talking about the deflection of something when dropped in a chamber because Earth turns underneath it.
Yeah, the guy that calls your name like a million times.
Hey, Nathan.
The guy that demanded you to show him citation that there's a claim that the Earth is rotating underneath shit. Yep,
That was his claim. He claimed the Earth turned underneath something when dropped for it to give you a deflection. That was his claim. He demanded I prove that he was making that claim, even though that was his example. We just pointed out that if that example was true, then Earth would turn underneath stuff, like planes. And then he suddenly wanted us to cite the very thing he's trying to prove when he drops something and says it's deflecting because Earth's turning under it.
Nathan, I put 3 screenshots for synonyms for retrograde. And Master B, maybe you'll see the word you're looking for.
No, because it's a description of it in a different cosmology. No, it's none of those. Sorry. Talk amongst yourselves.
You remember that we were just talking about the molten iron core there before we finished the live show. That's another situation like falling off the edge. Like we were asked for a long time, and we're still get asked by people who are naive on the subject. Where do you fall off the edge of the flat Earth? You know, from the Flat Earth Society pizza disc nonsense. And the ballers were asking us that for a long time. But it was really their edge, which was the horizon, was the only thing. The geometric horizon was the only thing that you could be falling over, right? So it was just projection. But the same thing has happened over the years with the magnetic field, because they keep on asking us for years, where is your south magnetic field or your opposing magnetic pole? Completely forgetting that they only have one as well that we know of. We have the north magnetic pole, they have the north magnetic pole. Now, besides anything else, we don't know where the other one is. We can only speculate if there is another one. But they don't have another one. Yet
So
they
what
were
you're saying
asking
is,
us.
what you're saying is, if we went down there with a compass, and because opposites attract, we should be able to get a compass, and either whether it's a northern hemisphere one or not, because apparently that's a thing, you should be able to establish the south rotation point, the south pole, but there isn't one. So doesn't that debunk the idea that it's a globe?
Yeah, because there is no like they're asking us where's your other magnetic pole with the pre-assumption that they have another one, but they don't have another one. And even the whole thing about a north and south compass, that's only because of declination, because of angles between the person with it what they call true north, which is only geographic, mathematical north, and real north, which is magnetic north. You know what I mean? They're claiming for years that they have these two magnetic poles. There's only one provable pole, and that's in the north. There's nowhere else that you can prove that there is a magnetic anything.
So where's your second? The question we should be asking is, where's your second pole?
Yeah, where's your other pole? Because they're always asking us.
Well,
Sorry,
it
I found
makes
it.
easy sense when you think of how a speaker works.
1 second. I found the description. So I just looked it up by the person whose system it was. It's Ptolemy's description. So it's an epicycle. EPICYCLE. Epicycle.
Wow.
So that's when you've got a...
Epicycles are
I knew it.
I've been searching for ages there, Nathan. I couldn't see what.
Yeah, I found it in the end. So that's when you've got an Earth-centric system rather than a Sun-centric system. It's called an epicycle.
Which, to be honest, it feels more like we have maybe that's why maybe that is why they use apparent retrograde motion, because epicycles are true and they need an adjustment. So they've called it an apparent retrograde motion because it's an adjustment.
No, retrograde motion is a sun-centric description of them moving backwards, right? They don't move backwards. That's the first thing. Now, having an Earth-centric system with the stars moving around the Earth at the center still gives you this apparent, according to them, backward movement. But that's why I brought Adam in the show. Do we actually observe that? No, we don't. But if you extrapolate out that they are physical bodies in an analog motion, and then you take the observation one night and then take the next observation, obviously in reference to retrograde / epicycles, you can extrapolate out that they've moved backwards. They haven't, though. That's the point.
No, but what I'm saying is if the sky is some kind of construct, be it intelligent design, God or otherwise, then that construct would have a pattern to it because it's constructed. And if the epicycles were the alternative explanation for the apparent retrograde motion, then it seems to me that we should be looking at epicycles, because apparent retrograde motion is the or a adjustment that they need for the heliocentric model. So what's the alternative? Epicycles. Okay, let's look into epicycles and see whether that's got anything to support it.
The term epicycle. What does cycle mean, Anthony?
A cycle. Yeah, epicycle. I get it. I understand. It's looking at the petals of the lotus flower as the planets are forming over your head.
But in terms of that linear motion, do not have that. That description requires them actually moving in a path, and they don't. That's the bottom line. What we see in terms of them actually doing through the night isn't anything akin to this description of epicycles. If you look at the diagram, let's just get the diagram back up. Can't see it, can you? It's in my Skype. Ugh. Okay, well, anyway, in the description of epicycles, it's got a literal drawing. Let's just bring it up. Of them moving in a cyclical motion, right? Analog. Yeah, it's got a point A, 2 point B, and an in-between. Well, when you describe it that way, when observing it one night, then taking an extrapolation from what it looks like the following night, then it doesn't work. You've got them going backwards. But that is literally not what you actually observe. We haven't got this circle, right? There's a gap in between it. It's much more digital in the way it actually presents itself.
I just posted a picture from the internet on apparent retrograde motion diagram into Master B. If it's of any use.
Okay, let's have a look.
Tony,
Yo.
we and Tony were talking about moonwalking ants the other day. So in that scenario, you never see you don't see the ants moonwalking. Yeah, you only see them walking forward still, but they don't even appear to be moonwalking. But the next day, when you look at them, they appear to have gone backwards. Their starting point is different, is my understanding. But what you don't witness is that moonwalking effect.
Yeah, you don't witness the thing they're saying happens. You don't witness them going backwards. That's the point.
Yeah. I'm just saying that look at the language that's used when they use the term apparent retrograde motion. If it was true, it would just be retrograde motion, which is the way Blurthers represent it when they talk to you about it. They never say apparent retrograde motion. They always drop the word apparent. Well, I'm wondering, well, why is that? Why is the word apparent even there?
Because in
It's
their
been-
model, it
it's-
is apparent.
Not apparent. It's substituting extrapolated for apparent. Apparent meaning it's appearing. Yeah? Appearing but not actually. Well, no,
If you
because
play
it's not
Billie Jean, it'll
appearing.
go backwards.
It's an extrapolated retrograde motion based on the observation one night, then the observation the next, and an assumption that they move in a linear path from one to the next, therefore backwards. But that's not actually apparent. So you're not actually seeing it happen. That doesn't happen. That's the point. It's just an extrapolated retrograde motion.
I think the use of the word apparent here is genuine by them, because if you go into their model, then in their model, Mars is just going around the sun just like we are. However, from our perspective, when we get close to it, we go faster, and therefore the apparent relative positions change. So apparently, in their model from that position, it gives an apparent retrograde, even though there is no change in movement or speed in their model of any of the planets. Yeah, they're constant, or they're orbital. But apparently, from this perspective, there is a retrograde motion. I think that's why it's termed like that by them, because it's apparent in their model. It's not really, it doesn't actually occur. It's only apparent from this perspective.
But it would actually be apparent if it occurred. In other words, we would actually see what is described as retrograde motion. If those speed changes and differences from our perception were occurring, it would be apparent. That's where the magic trick lies. They're using it to say, well, no, it only appears to be travelling backwards, because it in reality still moving forwards. But from our perception in a heliocentric, sun-centric world, it looks that way, like it's going backwards, even though it isn't. That's why we're calling it apparent. But we'd actually have to see it moving backwards for that to pad out. Now, we don't actually see it moving backwards at all. But their extrapolation that it moves backwards furthers a description of an apparent backwards movement, which isn't really backwards, but we don't actually see it in the first instance.
Nathan, if you see the last one I put in there, I put in another diagram, but an actual picture after that, where someone has put in what would look like a planet type thing in apparent retrograde motion. They throw in this orbit word with everything, but an orbit is something falling around something else, and it's a mass attracting mass gravitational thing. But apparent retrograde orbit is what they call it, or what they try to say is an orbit. It's just a light in the sky moving independently of the rest of the sky, basically. That's all it is.
No, but it is cyclical though. They are forming cyclical patterns.
If you look at what I just put into Master B there, that's someone made using the night sky as a background, the backdrop.
I've got it up. So you've got the retrograde motion on screen, so people can see exactly what we're detailing. However, when I said it appears in a digital fashion, what you are seeing on screen now is the sum total of more than a month of photography, right? These are their positions. Well, it's not moving. Let's say when we say backwards, we're talking about from on the right-hand side of the screen from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen being the forward motion. And then in the following nights, it's moving back. That's retrograde as described. But there isn't any movement in this direction from right to left. Where it positions itself relative to everything else has moved back, but it hasn't actually moved in this direction at all. And every time you've observed it in terms of its position, it's just changed in a very digital fashion. One dot, then another dot, which all moves in synchronicity when you're observing it. It's not going the other way. You just see it in this position, whereas the previous night it was in that position. Well, that doesn't mean it's moving backwards. That is an extrapolation as opposed to an apparent observation of something moving in the opposite direction, because it isn't moving in the opposite direction. It's all moving in the same way the rest of the stars move when you actually observe it move.
Exactly. No, you're 100% correct. No, it's what they're saying doesn't happen. What we see
I agree.
is exactly, one night we see this, the next night we see it in that position. We don't see it going from that position to that position. We see the whole sky moving as one. Then the next night it's in a different position. But we didn't see it going from A to B or B to C.
We don't see the whole sky moving as one, though. There are very, like, they do things, there are things that move in the night sky that move at different rates.
That's not what I
We do
mean.
see-
Sorry, I just need to clarify that for Anthony. That's not what I mean. When I say moving together, what I mean by that is if you do a time lapse of the sky, what you'll see is all of the lines that the stars make as they move are joined up. Yeah? That's an analog motion. Smooth all the way through a transition from point A to point B. Think of a second hand on a watch. It can't get from 1 to 2 without going through every single increment in between. Yeah? Because it's a fluid motion. Well, that's what you see in the stars when you observe them with a time lapse. Now, this on screen isn't that. There's no joining the dots up when you're taking a staggered over, 35, I think I counted, dots, over a month. You're not seeing a linear transition from point A to point B. It's giving you a relative position to the rest of the sky based on a progression of the movement that is assumed to be linear over the course of a month. What you end up with is a digital representation. Dot, dot, dot. There's no in-between between the dots like you would observe in the linear motion of the star's rotation when they are actually moving. But the assumed movement that it's going in the opposite direction in this example on screen, we do not observe that happening, ever.
It's an anomaly. What you put, Brian's put up there, that's the same as what you get with the sun, same position. If you plot the sun's position over the year, you'll get a figure 8, won't you? But this is what's happening, I think, over a month in the orbit of one of the planets, isn't it? It's positional change at the same time every single night. This is where it appears, and that gives you that, like I say, extrapolated data. That's nothing to do with what you witness at night. If you look up and watch it move, they're just relative positions at, say, midnight every night. That's where the star was for those consecutive days. It's as far as I know, it's just an anomaly.
Precisely, the analemma you're describing. So when you follow the same process and do the same, track it month on month or day on day, rather than in an analog fashion, you end up with a pattern that looks like a figure of 8. That's fascinating. Does it mean it's moving in a figure of 8? Does it mean that it's an apparent description in a heliocentric model that gives you an apparent figure of 8? It matters not, because it's not moving in that fashion, and you're not observing it to do so either. You can take a time lapse over a period of days and then make that extrapolation. So it is not apparent, it is extrapolated. That's the bait and switch, that's the magic trick.
Something very interesting I saw in 2016. I have to admit, now and again, I will look at some of the Flat Earth Society's website. The reason I do is because it's a misinformation website, but it also has some things that are put out there for people who know what to look for. And I have to admit, I have found stuff there that made a lot of sense and that actually became something, right? Because it's misinformation for the general public, but there's stuff out there for people who are flat earthers. When you know what to look for, you'll know what it is. And I saw this picture I downloaded it was actually a GIF, a movable GIF, back in 2016, and it showed Polaris at the center, let's just say, right above the Earth, right, and around that were all the stars that we would see, let's say, north of the equator. And then it was like, the way it showed it was like two cogwheels, where there was another cogwheel, right, that would be the stars south of the equator. The cogwheel where Polaris is at the center, that moves around in a circle constantly, and the other cogwheel moves around the outside of that. And that was someone trying to say something?
I think so.
That's Danish,
No, sorry.
Tony. It's
But
always
there was
Anthony.
like just two cogwheels, one in the center out above us, and another one on the outside of that. And the one on the outside moved around the one in the center, and the one in the center spun. Now, they weren't saying that they were actual steel cogwheels, but they're saying that they moved in that type of a fashion. And it actually made sense. And they said in the daytime, you can't see the stars that are above you on the cogwheel in the, let's say, in the north, because of the sun and the sky having a blue appearance. But what I often wondered was, in the daytime in the south of the equator, can you see stars in the daytime south of the equator? But that would kind of, if you couldn't, that would kind of back up that little theory they're throwing out there. Because we can sometimes see stars in the daytimes north of the equator, but I don't know about south. I don't remember ever seeing stars at any point, or any kind of star in the daytime when I lived in Australia.
Okay, I've seen stars in the daytime, but the only problem with that description is all of the description. Let's pretend that it's not analog cogs either, all moving at the same time, right? It's a bit more like a clock where it allows the hand to move one section. Yes, it's got to still transition through every in-between stage, but it moves on in a big, it clicks over, so to speak, like the date on a watch clicks over. It's got to go through the in-between bit on the roll on the watch, but ultimately speaking, it shows one number, then shows the next. But it's gone through the roll, like in your cogs example. But all of the transitions all happen when no one's looking. Because when you watch them move, none of those things, i.e. retrograde motion or orbits or any of those things, are being observed to occur when you watch the stars actually move. So in other words, you watch them move throughout the night, and then when they all disappear, it all changes. The cogs all move, and it all moves into the next position. It just ticks over. It's like, yeah, but you don't get to see that bit. And you can extrapolate it that way so that you can retain the movement of the cog, i.e. it's still moving in a linear fashion. It still moves in an analog way through those motions. That's how the Flat Earth Society are describing it. But we'd need to see some of that effect actually happening. We'd need to see the bit that's apparently being clouded by the day. Why is it that it always ticks over in the day when you've got different parts of the claim to be sphere Earth? I know this is Flat Earth Society narrative, before you correct me, that are pointing at it at different points. It's the same actually on the Flat Earth Society by that token. There's going to be points where somebody would see it ticking over then during their night, right? Well, no, nobody ever sees it ticking over, so to speak. Just see the change the following night.
Yeah, but let's just say you're looking at it now at let's say something like Mars, right? And tomorrow night you see it and it's in a different position. You didn't see it moving from position A to position B.
Exactly.
You just know it's in a different position. That's
exactly
what you see.
Exactly. That's my point. Exactly, Brian.
Yeah, and then when it becomes nighttime, let's say daytime comes for you, and it becomes nighttime in a different part of the world, then they see the same thing that you just saw, but nobody sees it going from A to B. I know exactly what you've been saying, but that's 100% true, Nathan. Nobody sees this.
Right. So we're not seeing orbits. We're not seeing retrograde motion, apparent or otherwise. That's an extrapolation based on photography over a specific time period. And then you can see the transition after it's occurred, but you don't know what the transition is. And the assumption is, well, it's an analog motion between those 2 points. The way we observe it is a description of something that's only apparently backwards because of the way we're orbiting. But again, that assumes that it's moved in a linear fashion from point A to point B, even though you don't see it.
Well, if you go to Master B, Nathan, I put a few pictures up. You've got the long-term almanac that shows the cyclical nature of the stars from 2000 to 2050 by Jeffrey Kolb. Then you've got Raphael's 51-year ephemeris from 2000 to 2050. We know exactly where they're going to be over the Earth, because it's going to be their geographical positions that you use for navigation. Then I've got some older ones here, and because they're so thick, people usually buy them year by year. These go into the 1800s. So they know because they repeat themselves. And it says there in the scripture I posted in Master B of Genesis 1:14-15. Then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light on the earth. And it was so. So for these people to try to wiggle out of this is impossible, because how in the world do you know where they're going to be in 2050 unless they repeat themselves?
Yeah, exactly. Like what Nathan is saying, like, and has been saying, because I remember you saying this so recently, Nathan, is for you to, let's say Mars appears to be moving in a retrograde motion, for you to actually try and actually validate that is actually going from one place to another. You would, like I say, it is actually moving. It's not just turning up in a different place the next day. You'd have to actually follow the sky around, right around the Earth and back around for 24 hours. You'd never be able to do that. You couldn't follow it. It moves at 15 degrees an hour. You'd never be able to follow the sky. You would never. There's nothing we have that could be fast enough and could last that much of a journey and keep up that speed. You couldn't do it. All you see is tonight you see it in this position, tomorrow night you see it in that position, and that's it, isn't it?
Yep. And again, you know, for somebody that you point this out to who's got a heliocentric worldview, when you point out that the mechanics don't actually occur the way they're described, we don't see it clicking over as I've described it in this discussion, well then what they're going to do, challenge you to describe how the stars work? It's like, no, the patterns are very well established, as 10th Man's just pointed out, but we don't know what they are.
Yeah. 10th Man is 100% correct. They couldn't give you 50 years of predictions unless it was all constantly cycling. It would be impossible.
Speaking of 10th, did he give a presentation yet on his sextant operations? I seen it in Master B. Did he present on that yet?
Yeah, he's done several. They've been in the pre-shows for about last week. So if you look at any Uncut and After show, the start is normally tied up with 10th Man's presentations on exactly that.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't it on the main show? Isn't it good enough to be main show
He
material?
just starts doing it. I'm normally doing other things, and then he just launches into it. Normally at an inappropriate moment when I should be pressing other buttons, and asks me to move the slides along. I've got used to it now.
I told Nathan, John, that it's so long that I decided, instead of, because I don't have the time, I'll just take the pieces I have of it and help him, because he's a YouTuber, and I rather, I'm not trying to make money on YouTube like Nathan is, so I'll just come on this pre-show and do little bits at a time. And I said, if he wants to, he can compile them all and just add them together, because they take different subjects of celestial navigation.
Well, I guess I just exposed myself as not watching the after show.
Pre-show.
That's okay. You're part of the
You're
crew.
not up to date with the flat Earth debate.
You're part of the crew.
I hate when that happens.
I think you're up to date. I'm pretty sure of it, in fact.
I just didn't see it, and you said he was on the pre-show, so yeah. Why don't you do one consolidated presentation? Maybe not on a show, just like as a special.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we can do it as a special, as opposed to on a flat Earth debate, if you want a dedicated hour or two, more than happy to do that. If you wanted to, 10th Man, or if you were willing to, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I'll just go over the ones I have. I have all the slides. I just have to put them together. And if you want to go back and forth with questions, and I'll give the statements from my research, and we'll let the audience decide.
Excellent.
I think it'll be beneficial for the audience, because if I didn't see it, a lot of people didn't. I think you should do it.
Somebody asked me the other day, what was your best flat Earth 5? And I was like, one of them, I put it at number 5, not for any, there was no rhyme or reason to the ordering, but I put sextant as a flat Earth proof.
Yeah, Court, what's going to happen with those sextant measurements, Rumpus? I see you in here, you numpty. What's going to happen with those sextant measurements when the friggin' horizon's refracted?
They allow for when you make a sextant measurement, you have to allow for refraction. There's a
really?
there's a
Where's the
formula.
refraction calibrator on it?
They make assumptions about what the refraction is. There's a standard way. There is a standard allowance.
You don't even know what looming. You don't even know what looming is. I heard you knuckleheading yourself around yesterday talking about looming. You don't even know what it is.
Oh, I do perfectly.
No, you don't.
I have spoken to Andrew Thomas Young about this, and he
doesn't know what it is.
Oh my God! Here you are. Come on.
You don't
understand the subject at all, and you think you can
go ahead and
contradict him.
cite it. Shut up.
You don't know anything.
Go ahead
about
and
the subject.
cite it. I'm gonna fucking shut you up. Go ahead and cite it and give an example of it. Now shut your mouth. Cite it and give an example, please.
I've got a picture of it.
Okay, put it in live stream.
Oh, you can't. Say I can't share my screen then.
No, put it in live stream.
So you got such a crap setup, you can't even have.
Put it in live stream, you numpty dipshit.
Dude,
like
what a terrible setup this is. Okay, I'll see if I can do that then.
Nathan, it'll come at you where you want it. Nathan, sir.
Yes.
Where would you like it when he posts it?
Oh, you're asking me. Sorry. Skype.
Yep. Which one, Master B? Yeah, I know Skype.
It must be.
Master B. And let's get...
What an amateurish system where you can't share your screen.
Shut the hell up and put it in live stream like everyone else does.
What a load of bollocks. Anyway, we'll see how we get on here.
Stop complaining and do it, you numpty dipshit.
Well, it's just such a crap setup, isn't it?
It's not a crap setup. The crap setup's in between your ears.
You can't share your screen like you can in every other interaction of this sort. It's just ridiculous.
Shut up and do it.
I'm doing it. I'm having to put up with this tosh. Here we go.
You're too stupid
to put up with it. No, you're not. You're here by your own volition. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, okay, it's a crap setup. Yeah, I'm saying it's a crap setup.
It's not a crap setup.
About technology. You still say sticks in
the ground. You can't even organise them.
Get your shit in here.
I'm doing it now.
Do not insult his setup.
I'm having to do an extra work because of this crap setup.
Yeah,
isn't that an appeal to format fallacy?
It is absolutely
a fallacy.
Yes.
Vegetable.
Yeah, it's a fallacy.
You just can't copy my stuff. I'm afraid.
I know. I like that.
I know you're desperate to get some
There will be no
resource here.
desperation to copy anything from you, you numpty dipshit.
Do you still not understand?
I dispatched you in 2016.
Right,
You've never.
With extreme prejudice. That's on my channel.
Everybody who was
everybody's shit.
Hello.
I tell you
waiting to present something.
Shut the hell up, Rumpus. You don't tell me shit. You put that definition in the example. You hear me? Stop the burning. Stop the burning.
Come out of your bunker.
Stop the burning.
I'm going to fucking
mute you.
Tired of listening to present then.
There
are no appeal to the platform. We're just waiting to present whatever you're going to present, Rumpus. Moan about the format a bit more, maybe. Moan about the platform. Just give us the thing you want to present, and I'll present it. It's that simple.
I listened to that. You got destroyed, Rumpus.
Anyway, before we poison the well anymore, let's just get the presentation that he wants us to have on screen, and I'll put it up.
Yep.
Because balls.
Yeah, it's because balls, man.
Because balls.
Yep.
While we're young, Rumpus.
All right, you've unmuted me. Well, I'm not very inclined to give anything to people unmuting me, I'm afraid.
Lost. Go away
I tell
then.
you what, Huey, why don't you...
Go away then. Why are you moaning, you bloody cuck beater? You want to come to moan? Well, if you don't like it, you could have some balls and just bugger off. Or you could sit here bleating like some beta cuck.
Come on, Huey, come out of your bunker and debate me.
We're waiting for you, you bloody fundy moron. We're waiting for you to present something rather than bitch about how you've got to present it. Take your time.
You're a little coward, Huey.
Just ad homs rather than in presenting this thing.
Scaredy cat. Come out of your bunker and debate me.
Share your screen.
Any subject.
Share your screen.
I know more about every subject.
Share your screen.
He said he's not going to
And you're
do
a
it because
coward.
he's muted him.
We're
You're
waiting
a
on
coward.
looming.
You
Still
won't
waiting.
come out of your bunker,
Still
and
waiting.
you won't debate anybody. You
Won't
never
come out of the
never
bunker.
debate
Didn't he
anybody.
charge you with that
You
before?
bunch of girls. Just share the fucking screen. Move on.
No, I'm not. I'm
Stuttering a lot.
Told you he wasn't going to share it.
trying to provide something to a moron who's a scaredy cat.
Rumpus, nobody's scared of you, Rumpus.
Rumpus, I know girls with more backbone than you, bro. Are you kidding?
Anthony, he's never dared debate
Hey,
anybody properly.
hey,
ever
Chocolate
tried to
said he
punish him.
knew girls with more backbone than you.
He's a scaredy.
Hey, Rumpus, did you hear Chocolate? You didn't hear anything because your fucking flap is trapping. Chocolate, can you tell him again?
I know girls with more backbone than you, Rumpus. It's pretty sad.
Well, we could see, couldn't we? If we had a debate with
Did
Huey, you could find
Did you
out.
hear that? He knows girls with more backbone than you.
Didn't you have a debate with QE like 4 years ago and that got destroyed?
As a black Jewish Muslim
Everybody
woman,
agreed
I find
I
that very
destroyed the.
offensive.
Everyone agrees.
Even flat earthers were coming
If
on.
I'm not mistaken,
What the hell up?
QE
Flat earthers
spends
didn't
more
know their
time
ass from a
debating than
pipe
anyone.
wrench when I
Are
came
we
out
going to get
here.
an argument?
I tightened
about-
their shot group. That's
Sorry.
why you're feeling the vice grip around
QE.
you now.
Sorry, QE.
It took this long.
The subject.
They were pleading with him to shut up and stop because he was
Yeah,
being
I know,
beaten
because
so
they're numpty
hard.
dipshits.
They were so
Yeah, they were so
QE.
ignorant.
Hello,
They didn't
QE,
know what to do.
please. We're still waiting for an argument that I haven't even got clarity of what the argument's going to be about. We're waiting for a presentation from Rumpus to be sent. What was it about again? I've completely forgotten. He's managed to achieve total distraction from the subject at hand.
Yes, he was supposed to define looming and then give an example of it, but he's. Hello, did you hear that, Nathan?
Looming, an example of it. I thought we were talking about the
Yes.
sextant, but fine. Looming, okay.
I told him he didn't know what looming was because he doesn't.
This is a rather wonderful picture that George acquired as a result of these daily
George.
observations. And he's
Hold on.
remarkably captured.
Post it.
And remarkably captured a looming.
Shut the hell up and
Yeah, we
post
still
it.
haven't got it. I'm still waiting with 10th Man's presentation on screen for this to actually be presented, so we know what he's talking about. But he wants to waffle on about it before posting it. I wonder why.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to put up being muted all the time, I'm afraid. So I'm
You
not
are.
inclined
You
to
are
do-
literally putting up with it. That's precisely what you're doing. QE is muting you, and
No,
you
I'm
are
not putting
putting
up-
up
no,
with
I'm
it. But you are moaning about it like a little beta cuck. So you are putting up with it. You're wrong, because that's precisely what you're doing. You could just sod off. You're not. You're putting up with it. Whilst telling us that you're not putting up with it.
Rumpus, it would be easier.
No, so I'm not posting
you
it
just
now.
Rumpus. It'd be easier
Hello,
if he just
Brian, yep.
Rumpus. It'd be easier if he just didn't try and overtalk everything all the time. There wouldn't be people wouldn't feel the need to mute you then. If
You
just
get about
post
4
the
words
thing
out before I
and
get
state
muted.
your argument.
He's just muted you, Brian.
Keep it
What he did
simple.
was he waited till you were midway through your sentence and then declared that he gets 4 words in before he gets muted, effectively muting you. So he's now projecting the fact that whilst having it detailed that he talks over you, he talked over you to moan about how he gets talked over.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to actually give the man advice. Just keep it simple.
Brian, you're not
post
being
your
objective.
argument.
So what he's just done again is exactly the same. So he's waited till about 3 or 4 words into Brian's sentence and then interrupted him, effectively muting him. So we describe this on Flat Earth Debate as the fundy mute button. It's where a fundy zealot who doesn't want to actually have an argument immediately starts talking through the person that's putting anything to them. And then if that's in any way combated, in this example, QE is actually putting him on mute when he does this. Yeah, they'll claim a foul because they're getting shut up and stopped from interrupting. Effectively, them muting us. And then they project it onto us when we stop them doing it. Right again,
I'm
Brian.
very happy to take turns.
No, I've got control of the show. You'll do what I demand. And then what, moan about it? Yeah, you can do that. But you are definitely putting up with my rules and the charge that I have here. You can say I will take turns. What you'll actually do is what I damn well tell you to.
No, I won't.
Yeah, you
If you
will.
want
I've
to
got control
complain
of the
about
show.
the format, don't do it while somebody else is talking. How about that?
You, the fact you don't know the difference between acceleration and velocity. You
Oh, God, acceleration and velocity again.
Yeah, that worked yesterday. You managed to get everyone talking about a ball and how it experiences acceleration and velocity when the subject matter at hand was gas. Yeah, you also told us that it needs containment. You know, it has a tendency to run around, so you'd need containment for it. You also told us that when weighing it, you'd minus off the container it would require to weigh it. Yeah? Ultimately, you basically conceded the gas go down, go boom, boom, and declared that we need containment for gas. So you had a big loss yesterday, Rumpus.
You don't realise how stupid I'm making you looking.
Really? Stupid by telling us about how we should argue about velocity and acceleration with solid bonded bouncy balls when the subject matter is gas? I wonder how many times I'll repeat the actual position of the argument that you've obfuscated with your acceleration for bouncy balls when we're talking about gas. That's the third rendition. Let's see how many times he obfuscates, ignores, or essentially doesn't address the actual argument of gas not going down, go boom, boom, and tries to take it back onto acceleration for bouncy balls. Let's see how many times that's happened. 3 times I've made it clear what the argument is about. Gas not going down like bouncy balls.
To understand my response to your point, you have to understand the difference between acceleration and velocity, and you don't. So that's why I go to...
You're a dumbass cracker, man. We're not talking about acceleration and velocity. He's talking about gas molecules being weighed. You numpty dipshit. So get on point and stop with your incoherent babbling before I come in there and slap you around a little bit.
You need me to
And
bring
to
you back on...
understand how you measure,
You don't seem to understand what the conversation's about, so do you want me to bring you back on track with what you've asserted?
Yes, please.
So Rumpus has asserted that you need to get on a scale to prove gravity. And I asked him how you'd put gas on a scale.
Yes, and you need to understand in my answer the difference between acceleration and velocity.
What, when describing how you put gas on a scale?
Correct. So because you don't understand the difference, you don't understand
How do you put gas on a scale, Rumpus?
Because you don't understand that you can have acceleration.
Starting with a description of how I don't understand something, an ad hominem attack, a logical fallacy, I might add. We're not getting a description of how gas is weighed on a scale. Now, you've already told us yesterday that gas has this tendency to run around all over the place. So you'd need to put it in a container and then minus the weight of the container off. You've already told us. So for gas, you need containment for this gravity example. You've already told us that.
And if you understood the difference between velocity and acceleration, you would know what's going on.
Shut the hell up. I'm tired
I've summarised his position, which we've heard. What was the problem? Did I hear his position because he didn't get a chance to tell us yesterday? Yeah, we heard. I've trimmed it out, and a good chunk of people, about 1,000 people, have laughed at you, Rumpus, while you tell us that down is up.
No, they haven't. Any objective observer, you would see the comments.
Where is this looming
I'm not
for?
discussing the comments. I'm asking how you weigh gas, and you've told us it needs containment because it runs around everywhere. The problem with that is that Earth doesn't have any containment.
That's called gravity.
Gravity? Sorry, you didn't say put gravity around it. You said that
Come over
weighing
definition.
it was demonstrating gravity, but to weigh it, it needs a container. So we'd need a container for this assertion of gravity then, wouldn't we, Rumpus?
If you have a chamber...
So we need a chamber if we have a chamber. So we're going to be needing containment for this example with gas, even if you're using it to claim that gas go down, go boom, boom when it's contained in a chamber. So we're going to need containment for this example. And if we're going to weigh gas, it's going to be in containment. So if we're going to apply gravity to gas, it's going to be contained. Correct?
You can weigh the whole atmosphere without a container.
Atmospheres are begging the question fallacy that appeals to your fundamentalist sky vacuum belief and has a whole law about gas behaving in a very strange way where it takes the shape of a sphere as opposed to taking the shape of its container. Now, to weigh gas, according to you, it would need to be contained. Now, appealing to your fundamentalist religious zealotry and oxymoron of atmosphere won't cut it. We're talking about weighing a gas. So far, get on a scale. And with gas, we can't do that without containment.
A container contains a gas by example.
That's right. So we're going to need a container then. And Earth, in the heliocentric model, does not have one. There is no container around Earth. Saying that gravity is the container is the assertion that to get the weight, which you say is gravity demonstrations with scales, we're going to need to put gas in a container.
You don't need to. You can measure the whole atmosphere.
Oh, really? You don't need to. So how do I weigh a gas without a container?
Well, the thing about gas is because it has velocity of 500 meters per second.
Sorry, how do I weigh a gas without a container because it has velocity? I just need to know how to weigh it without containment, given that you've already told me because it runs around, it's going to need containment.
But it still has weight and still has...
Sorry, weight is what you would put it in a container and put it on a scale in, so still need containment then. So, Earth as a sphere has no containment. And to calculate how quick that gas is going to fill that volume, we're going to use the volume of space it can fill. And space, the claim of a sky vacuum, is a space for gas to fill. And fill it must, because it doesn't behave like bouncy balls. It doesn't go down, go boom, boom. And when I ask you if it does go down, go boom, boom, how would we weigh it on a scale? And you tell us we need containment.
They effectively have springs on each molecule of gas.
Springs on them.
A conceptual...
Conceptual springs aren't real. Now, I don't care about your nonsense about conceptual springs. Gas has elastic collisions, not little springs, not go down, go boom, boom. And to assert weight, it needs containment. So if you're going to say gravity holds it here, your example of weight being gravity by your description requires containment.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, right. So how do I weigh a gas without a container?
You can measure the weight of the atmosphere just without...
Atmosphere isn't me measuring gas. That's your fundamentalist oxymoron, doublespeak assumption that gas takes the shape of a sphere. And I'm not asking about atmosphere because it's an oxymoron. Air takes the shape of its container. It does not take the shape of a sphere. We also don't have homogeneous layers as described with atmosphere. Gas doesn't form layers as described with atmosphere. That's wrong. And appealing to your fundy belief about what air doesn't explain how you're going to weigh a gas when you say gravity's holding it here because you've got weight for gas. Because that description from you, as described by you, requires a container.
You can measure gas without a container. Can you measure the atmosphere? Wait.
Yeah, atmosphere's an oxymoron. That's the third time. Begging the question of sphere-shaped air and homogeneous layers of sphere-shaped air is your fundy belief about air not doing what it actually does in reality. Atmosphere's an oxymoron.
No, it isn't. It does it. We've got pictures.
Show me, beyond your fundamentalist religious zealot assumption, that air takes the shape of a sphere. Beyond your fundamentalist religious assertion of what Earth does, show me sphere-shaped air without a container.
Pictures. We got pictures of space.
That's your fundy belief in what Earth does, so you know how to beg the question of your fundy belief? No. If air naturally takes sphere shapes without containers, show it beyond the thing you're assuming about Earth.
But it's only at the scale of Earth.
Oh, so it's only if you beg the question. We have air taking the shape of a sphere without containment in violation of natural law. So that's the thing you're claiming, and you're using your claim as the proof, aka begging the question, circular reasoning. No, Rumpus, enjoy the taste of my nuts. Don't just point at your fundamentalist presuppositional belief that the sky is a vacuum. As your proof of your fundamentalist presupposition that the sky is a vacuum, air does not take the shape of a sphere. It takes the shape of its container.
Not on the scale of the Earth, it doesn't.
So not on the scale of my fundamentalist religious belief that I'm going to appeal to, even though I can't show any examples of air taking a sphere shape without a container, beyond my fundy belief of a second law of thermodynamics violation that I can get pictures from it from. No, because if the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space. Gas expands in high speeds in all directions. It does not take the shape of a sphere, but your sphere-shaped air law assumes the sky is a vacuum and air defies natural law. It also claims homogeneous layers to the air And air does not form layers. It is inhomogeneous.
Isn't homogeneous layers. They vary in density. That's proof, again, that there's no container.
Sorry, you're asserting your homogeneous layers. So again, appealing to his own fundamentalist religious belief as the proof of his religious belief. So because they do form homogeneous layers in defiance of gas law, that's the proof that they are in homogeneous layers.
What do you mean by homogeneous? Do you mean of the same density? Same?
No, I mean, you've got descriptions of all these different layers of air.
And how are they different?
What are different? Your assumption that we're detailing? Well, we're going to not have that burden of proof reversal fallacy work immediately, Rumpus. You're going to ask me to detail your fundy belief now?
No, I'm asking you what you mean by...
What I mean? I don't, fuckwit. This is your stupid belief.
Same.
No, not what I believe, fuckwit. Yeah? How'd my balls taste? You're not going to get away with reversing the burden of proof ever again. Don't ask me to detail your fundy belief. In sphere-shaped air with homogeneous layers, described with the various different sphere appendages strapped onto these homogeneous layers, described in heliocentrism and atmosphere.
But they're not homogeneous, they're different...
Yeah, no shit. Air doesn't take layers. But it's described that way. Yeah? All those different layers? The stratosphere, that's a layer, isn't it? What about the Kármán line? Does that designate a layer? Where the sky vacuum and the air sphere that doesn't have any containment meet? Kármán line, right? Arbitrary. Layers, mate, layers. Gas doesn't do that, though. It doesn't form homogeneous layers.
Except there are layers in the atmosphere.
So there are layers. So gas doesn't do that, clown show. I've just said that. Maybe just tell me that it does and appeal to your fundamentalist religious belief in violation of what air actually does and tell me that that's what it does. It doesn't do that.
Density and temperature and pressure.
So it doesn't form homogeneous layers. That's not what gas does.
Hold on, let's just try this again. Do you accept that we have layers of...
No! Gas doesn't do that. Atmosphere oxymoron, fifth time telling you. Maybe asking me if I accept your fundy belief, so you can appeal to it as the proof of your fundy belief, in an attempt to reverse the burden of proof, maybe that will fly!
Do you accept...
No!
Density of the air?
No, I don't. We don't have layers. Air doesn't form layers, clown.
That.
No.
So you don't accept that the temperature, pressure and density of the atmosphere changes with height, is that correct?
Sorry, it gets thinner? That's not layers.
That is a layer.
Oh, you think gas getting thinner is layers? No. All of the different airs that are in that, all the different gases, don't take different concentrations at a higher altitude. It's just thinner. Are you thick?
Right, that is a different...
Right! Are you thick? Right, yeah, that's right. Tell the flat earther how right he was when he corrects you about it just thinning out and not forming fucking layers. Tell me how right I am. Enjoy the taste of my balls. Yeah, I am right, Rumpus. That's right, I'm right. Not layers. Not homogeneous layers. No, inhomogeneous. Just gets thinner as you go up. Yeah, because of entropy. Yeah, that would be our argument. Definitely not homogeneous layers, though.
The layers are different.
Not layers, no, it just gets thinner. Maybe tell me that your fundy belief needs to be believed again by asserting that it is layers when it's not layers.
That's a different property. If there's a different density, it's not the same, so it's not homogeneous, you moron.
Sorry, inhomogeneous, meaning not layered.
Let me just get this right. Are you...
You're a dumbass, Rumpus. You think you're clever, but you train wreck yourself. Everything comes out of your mouth. I want to see him weigh the atmosphere, because that's what he claimed. And that gravity or the container was a force.
Based on pre-assumptions.
So Rumpus, force doesn't equal MA. Force equals walls of the container.
God, you're a moron. Do you
Yep,
not think
that's
the
what you
container
said
exerts...
earlier. So
Yeah,
show us you weighing
I
the
said
atmosphere.
the container exerts...
Show us you claim that we can weigh the atmosphere. Show how we can weigh the atmosphere, Rumpus.
Do you deny that they
can only calculate
show how we
the
can weigh
right-
the atmosphere, Rumpus? You claimed it. Now it's time to support it, to justify your claim. You said clearly a number of times we can weigh the atmosphere. Do it.
Do you deny a gas...
You're done.
Yeah, can't support his claim.
But I had
We
a
can't support
question.
anything.
If Rumpus is going to be moot, I have a question because you said that the percentages of the different types of gases, traces included, are exactly the same everywhere except the pressure is different. Well, I kind of have my doubts about that specificity because I think that on average, the denser gases do collect more in the mash at the lower parts of the air layer, the atmos, and the less dense like helium and what is it, hydrogen, do collect on average more at the mash on top, right?
No,
So it's
you're
not
half right.
perfectly percentile
Okay,
wise.
hold on. You're
exactly
half right.
the same.
Hold on.
Right?
Oh, no, you're half right. So in a static system, yes. But we're not. We're in a dynamic system. It all gets mixed up.
Intelligent question, Owen. Well.
At the bottom, right? It's
No,
mixing at
you're
the
not
bottom.
answering his question. No. Nope. You have to show us weighing the atmosphere. You said it a number of times. You need to do it now.
I'm going to answer Arwen's first.
No.
You made a claim. Now you're going to support
here
it.
for the rest.
Maybe tell us that it's unfair, that the structure's unreasonable, that you putting out a claim and not supporting it and moving on to a different question from Arwen is unfair debate on our part. You've made a claim. Now we're asking you to support it. Not unreasonable, Rumpus. Come on.
I will, but I just want to ask Arwen.
You could, but we're not going to allow that. Yeah? We're going to say you do what we say or you do the other thing, which is sod off. Choice is yours. You don't have to like it.
You don't have to answer Arwen.
So good question,
I know what
Arwen.
you're going to say. I'll tell Arwen that later.
Well, he could answer me if he just first said how he weighs the atmosphere. That would be great to know.
Yeah.
So, Owen, I never said what you said I'd said. There is, in fact...
I never said what you said.
No, I said it. And I never said you said anything.
Owen also
You
said
did.
he'd
You
like
said
to know how you
the
weigh the
composition was
atmosphere.
the same.
No,
it's
I
not.
didn't say that. I never said you said something. I never addressed you saying something.
So within 20 seconds of him getting Arwen's attention, we're immediately off topic. Well done, Rumpus. Sometimes you get them to bite. Well done. However, I'm here to pummel you and point out that, no, we're not going to be taken off track with this nonsense. You've claimed we can weigh the atmosphere, and we're waiting for you to support that.
Yeah, I can do that. But you did make a claim that I had...
Oh, so it's back onto something else that's not supporting your claim. No, we're not going to tolerate that. You don't understand. Maybe moan about your choices that you have here. They are two. You can either provide support for your claim or sod off. What you won't be doing is choosing which way this direction goes. I'll be doing that.
About the gas container exerting...
Container? We got a container around Earth atmosphere then?
Is the
QE claimed there was no force being exerted by a container. He laughed at my suggestion that the gas container was exerting a force.
Oh, so Earth has a container now. So we're all clear. We must have containment. That's excellent. Excellent. Got containment then.
Moron, he doesn't understand that containers exert a force. What a...
So we've got a container for Earth then. Atmosphere must require containment then. Obviously, we're detailing what the containment does.
Yeah.
So
he doesn't understand.
A container
F
exerts
doesn't
a
equal
force,
MA.
but a
F
force
equals-
doesn't exert a container.
Holy shit, Arwen. Thanks for rumpusing this shit. You do it every single fucking time he comes on here. I asked him a question, he won't answer it, then you bring up another point, and then he catches on to that point. After 3 years, you'd think you'd figure that out.
You don't like me exposing as an idiot, do you, QE, when you claim that...
Shut up.
No, he's almost succeeded again. What Rumpus's tactic here is to get one of the other members of the team to bite so that he can take the subject away from what he's claimed. Now, yesterday, in the aftermath, he managed to succeed to get everyone discussing about how balls behave with acceleration and velocity when the question was specifically about gas. Now we, that would be me and QE, only me and QE, have brought this subject back on track. Now, Rumpus needs to squirm and worm and moan about format, whilst not providing evidence for his claim he can weigh the atmosphere oxymoron, begging the question of his fundy belief to prove his fundy belief. So, let's see it.
Well,
I'm
in
happy to
fairness,
do
it was
that, but QE made it
supposed to be proven looming.
He never cited that.
Yeah,
QE made a claim.
We got away from looming, right? He weaseled out of that because he knows he's going to get his ass handed to him. So now we're on. You made a claim 3 times that we could weigh the atmosphere. Show it.
Yeah, and you made a claim that gas...
Show it! Or you're finished here.
Coward. Can't back his claim, coward.
You made a claim about gas containers.
No, we're talking about your claim that you can weigh the atmosphere. It's specifically on topic. It's about the debate that you said we don't have here. Maybe you need a neutral platform.
I'll debate you, QE, about...
Need a neutral platform to answer his question about a claim you've made. Do you need a neutral platform for that?
All the time. I'm not able to answer.
We're asking you to provide support for the claim you've made, and you're not providing it. You're talking about a claim he made to obfuscate that. Proof you're not providing. That support you're not giving us. That citation we're not seeing. Maybe you need a neutral platform. Maybe it'd be easier to obfuscate away from your lack of actual support for the claim you were heard to make several times. Maybe it's the platform's fault.
Yeah, but I want to expose QE as an idiot.
I know you want to do anything other than provide support for your claim. Yeah, we know. But unfortunately, we control what happens here. On a so-called neutral platform, you'd be allowed to squirm away from this, wouldn't you? Whereas we don't tolerate that. You have very limited choices here. Put up or shut up. That's your choice. So put up your proof, show us your evidence of weighing atmosphere, or bugger off. Because your bleating won't go over anymore either.
Every time Q opens his mouth, he says something.
Sorry, we're not interested in what you have to say about QE. You said we could weigh atmosphere, very much on topic. Seems that the Globe side doesn't want to provide support for their claims. They want to bleat about platforms. Would a neutral platform be able to get Rumpus to provide support for this? If you're a neutral platform, tell me in the comments if you'd have got Rumpus to actually support his claim. Because I can guarantee you'd have allowed him to weasel away from it.
Not at all. I'd love to discuss it. But I'm being muted all the time.
Sorry, we're hearing you tell us that you're appealing to how the formats run rather than providing support and showing us atmosphere without containment in a vacuum of space being weighed, which is what you claimed.
Yeah, I can do that. And I've already demonstrated with pictures that you can demonstrate that there's an atmosphere there without...
You can't demonstrate with pictures how you weigh the atmosphere.
Rumpus, how do you weigh the atmosphere?
Hold on,
Rumpus?
if I want to weigh a dog, do I take a photo of it?
I didn't say about weight.
Well, you said you got pictures of it. Are you stupid? Man, do we have to explain what weight means? You were the one that told us we had to put things on scales to prove gravity, and now you're telling us we take a picture. So it's not putting on a scale as you told us, then. Maybe a neutral platform's needed for us to not humiliate the fact that you were the one who started this off by telling us to prove gravity. Get on a scale. Now you're telling us photos. I ask, do I take a photo of a dog to weigh it?
I never said you did.
So you said you'd take a picture of the atmosphere oxymoron to weigh it, though, didn't you, clown?
You've mixed.
Mick. Maybe stutter around the fact you're getting humiliated. Yes, you have told us you're going to take a picture of something to weigh it. I'm asking by comparison if a vet takes a picture of a dog to get its weight.
I can do the...
You could just say no, but that would require an ounce of humility, wouldn't it? Yeah? You don't have any, because you're a Globe believer. So you can't say no, vets don't take pictures of dogs to get their weight, like I'm saying I take a picture of Earth from a second law of thermodynamics violation sky. No, you're not saying no. You're going to carry on with your claim that you're weighing something with a photograph.
We've got a picture of a spherical...
And that weighs it, does it? Like you weigh a dog with a photograph? Maybe ignore it. The pummeling you're receiving's because it's not a neutral platform, Rumpus. If this was a neutral platform, you wouldn't have my nuts on your face as you lie dying.
You don't realise how stupid...
I don't realise that what? We weigh dogs by taking photos of them?
What's happening to you here now?
Sorry, do cameras classify as scales?
How do you weigh the atmosphere,
You don't realise how stupid I'm making you looking because you're too...
You're making me look stupid by saying you can take pictures of things to weigh them? No. I'm humiliating you and you are weaseling around to try and project that onto me. Saying you can weigh something by taking a photograph of it is, what's the word? Really stupid. And that's me, the flat earther, making you look stupid.
The picture proves the containment.
Rumpus, you dumbass.
The picture proves the containment. Weighing it is by another means I haven't yet...
So picture proves containment? You're saying you've got a picture of containment around Earth when you go to a sky vacuum? Who's interrupting from G+? You're saying you've got a picture of the container?
Answer. He said he hasn't got means to weigh the atmosphere.
Try listening. A picture of it being contained, not that there is a container.
How do you weigh the atmosphere?
How is that weighing the atmosphere? That's what you said you could.
Rumpus, how do you weigh the atmosphere, Rumpus?
I caught it too. Did you catch it?
Yeah, I did.
How do you weigh gold? You put it in a safe and then you make a picture of it.
Chewie, repeat what he said.
You could take a picture of the atmosphere being contained, even though there is no container.
Yeah.
Correct. Well done. You caught on it.
How many kilograms in that action?
He doubles down on it.
You don't even know what he's saying.
So just do that again, Rumpus, just for the third time. Just to know that it's right. Did you just say that you take a picture of the atmosphere to show that it's being contained without there being a container?
Correct. Gravity does it.
Stop it, please.
Have containment without a container, you Burke.
This is classic.
So, how many kilograms does the atmosphere turn out to be thanks to your weighing method of taking a picture?
Hold on. So that if that picture has no container, then is that a picture of gravity?
Yep.
No, it's a picture of the effects of gravity, you moron.
Effects of gravity. What causes that effect?
Cool. So, how do you weigh?
So the effects of gravity, what would that be? A downward vector. But gas doesn't go down. It expands in all directions. So you're saying when we see a picture of Earth from space, we're seeing the effects of down. Well, gas doesn't go down, go boom, boom like solid bonded bouncy balls.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
This goes back to not understanding between acceleration and velocity, I'm afraid.
Okay, so if I pour a kettle that's got steam coming out of it, not the water, just the steam, does it go down onto the scale?
The velocity of the molecules of steam go in all directions, but there's an acceleration downwards.
How can something go in all directions and then go down?
When you've been told off by QE once.
How can gas molecules go in all directions and then go down at the same time without violating the law of non-contradiction?
Because you don't understand the difference between acceleration.
Because we don't understand acceleration and velocity, right? That is non sequitur.
A picture of
No, it isn't. You don't understand the difference between acceleration and velocity.
It's non sequitur.
It is non sequitur.
Doesn't follow.
It is non sequitur.
It does follow. You don't.
You're holding two mutually exclusive positions as true at the same time. You're violating the law of non-contradiction.
Acceleration and velocity are different things.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Look, hang on. Get him to explain the connection. It's a non-sec point. What's the connection?
Right. QE doesn't understand. Oh, actually,
shut the fuck
Yeah, not going to start with his ad hom fallacy, poisoning the well, rather than actually explaining that he's trying to explain that when going up, you're actually going down. It is a violation of the law of non-contradiction. It is.
You see, you don't understand. You've just demonstrated you don't understand the difference between.
Sorry, it's just going to be constantly telling us we don't understand to try and appeal to the audience that actually we don't really know what we're talking about. Now, I'm going to lay it out as simplistically as I possibly can for the audience's benefit. If you are moving up, you are not moving down. You cannot be up-down. Like they're open-closed, it's a violation of the law of non-contradiction. If you are moving up, you are not moving down. If you are moving down, you are not moving up. But Rumpus is asserting that when moving up, you are moving down. That is what he is trying to convince you of. Now, this is what the globe must assert, because they need gas, which expands in all directions in the case of steam, up to become clouds. He needs it to be down, because when looking at a fake picture of Earth from a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum, he's saying the reason the gas that you see attached to the outside edge of this ball claimed to be our world is because gas is actually going down with gravity. But it isn't. That isn't what gas does. And when we say, do I pour steam onto a scale? He says, no, when it's going up, it's actually going down. Well, no, because it's going up. Yeah? But that's what he needs you to believe, that down is actually up. They're both simultaneously happening at the same time, when that's a violation of the law of non-contradiction.
If you understood the difference between acceleration...
No, not ad hom. You don't get to just launch into ad hom. No. I'm detailing how up isn't down. They can't simultaneously be occurring at the same time. Yeah?
I think Anthony might even understand what I'm saying.
Really? Well, I understand that when it's asserted that gas go down, go boom boom, we have demonstrations given to us to make the analogy. And those demonstrations include bouncy balls being poured into fish tanks. Now, if that analogy holds true, when I ask about weighing a gas, if it was analogous to bouncy balls, it would be poured into the fish tank and settle on the scale. If the scale was the entire surface of the fish tank. So the bottom of this fish tank in my example, which is absolutely claimed to be analogous in the same way you claim it's analogous by PhD clown show Thunderfoot. Now, if the bottom of his example, where gas go down, go boom boom like solid bonded bouncy balls, they'd settle on the bottom and we could weigh them. Now, in reality, when I say, okay, let's use gas, steam, does it settle on the scale? No, it doesn't settle, it goes up. But it's because it's also going down is his answer. No, just a contradiction in terms.
Anthony, if I throw a ball...
Not Anthony. My name is Nathan Oakley. I am a flat earther. I understand that when gas moves up, it is not moving down. Now, you can take every single ad hominem attack from Rumpus to imply that somehow I do not understand that when moving up as a gas to become clouds, you are not moving down as the same gas. That is a violation of the law of non-contradiction. My name is not Anthony. It is Nathan Oakley. I am the guy correcting your nonsense doublespeak contradiction. You will not appeal to my panel. I will be the one correcting you.
Anthony, if I throw a...
No! My name is Nathan Oakley. I'm a flat earther. Gas does not go down, go boom boom. You showing us a picture of gas which expands in all direction, doesn't prove that when it's moving up, it's actually going down, go boom boom, as exampled by PhD Clown that poured bouncy balls into a fish tank. Because gas does not go down to settle on the ground and require sweeping up. It moves in all directions. In the case of steam, it forms clouds. When it reaches, it's up. Now, on screen for my audience is a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. If this black area was a vacuum, then the gas beneath it would expand in all directions. What you are seeing on screen is not an example of gas behaving like bouncy balls. It's gas going up to form clouds, but not dispersing into the 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum that it's claimed is this black area. That is simply not the world we live in. It violates natural law. Gas does not go down, go boom boom. Now, Rumpus, stop appealing to Anthony.
I would like to ask Anthony a question, because you...
I don't give a fuck what you want. You're getting absolutely annihilated. Space is fake. We require containment. And when you tell us to get on a scale, I ask you how you weigh gas. You made it explicitly clear yesterday that you weigh it in a container and minus off the weight of the container. So we know that gas does not sit on scales to prove gravity downward vectors. It expands in all direction, and that violates the claim of space. Space is fake.
No, it doesn't. You don't understand, because...
I'm not going to hear I don't understand. I understand gas expands in all directions. It doesn't go down, go boom boom. You can't weigh it like you'd weigh a bouncy ball, and your false equivalence is never going to fly. Saying that when it's going up, going down is nonsense and a violation of the law of contradiction. Tell me I don't understand again, so I can kick you out.
Imagine if I were trying to wear a load of bouncy balls that were bouncing up and down.
Bouncy balls aren't gas.
Imaginary.
Look, bouncy balls you can put on a scale. You pour them into a fish tank, and they settle on the bottom, and you can weigh them. Gas doesn't behave that way.
What if the bouncing balls were...
They're not. Gas aren't bouncy balls. You're thick. And Thunderfoot is thick. I'll try it slower. How slow do I need to go to tell Rumpus that an unbonded gas isn't bouncy balls?
How would you weigh some bouncing balls, Nathan?
I'd put them
How
on
do
a
you weigh the
scale.
atmosphere?
Put them on a scale.
Yeah,
How would you weigh
That would
steam?
stop them getting out of the container,
I
wouldn't you?
answered. Now I'll see if he'll answer me. How would
Now
I
imagine if
weigh...
they're so-
I know he's going to fundy mute me. How would I weigh... Oh, he's going to fundy mute me. I answered. How would you weigh a bouncy ball, Nathan? I'd put it on a scale. Now I've got a question for him, but he can't tolerate it. Yeah, I let you have control for about 10 seconds there, didn't I, Rumpus? How'd you weigh steam?
Imagine trying to weigh some balls.
Imagine. I simply say you put a bouncy ball on a scale and it gives you its weight. I say, how do you weigh steam? And suddenly we're off to imagination land.
How do you weigh a bouncing ball that's going...
I already told you, put it on a scale. We've covered that. Now, how do you weigh steam?
But it bounces up and the end will bounce up.
Bounce? Steam doesn't bounce. You think steam hits the ground and fucking bounces?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you're thick. No, I'm afraid not, mate.
You can't measure bouncy balls.
We're not talking about bouncy balls. We already covered that. You can weigh them, you put them on a scale. Now we're talking about how you do the same with steam.
Try and imagine
Do you need a neutral platform? Maybe a neutral platform would get me an answer, ladies and gentlemen. Do you think I'd get an answer if I was on a neutral platform?
Just try and imagine.
Maybe a neutral platform's needed for me to get an answer. How do you weigh steam? Does it go down, go boom, boom, like bouncy balls? You asked me how you weigh a bouncy ball, and I said you put it on a scale. Surely, gas that behaves like bouncy balls, you'd also just gently place the steam on the scale, right?
And imagining you're trying to...
Imagining? Why is it that me, the realist flat earther here, just describes an answer to his question about how we'd weigh a bouncy ball, but when I ask if this equivalence that's false can have the same thing done, i.e. I gently place some steam on a scale, is that possible? I'm not getting an answer. Maybe it's because I'm not neutral enough here.
No, you're stupid. Your problem is...
Oh, it's because I'm stupid and ad hom fallacy. No, you're just not going to be able to weigh steam by putting it gently on a scale like a bouncy ball, making your equivalence false.
Bouncy ball's moving at 500 meters per second.
Sorry, a bouncy ball's moving upwards by its own volition like steam does it? Bouncy balls just randomly fly up in the air at 500 meters per second to make them analogous to steam. Do bouncy balls randomly fly in the air?
Gas molecules move...
No, we were talking about bouncy balls. Now he wants to talk about gas. Okay, how'd you weigh steam?
Give me a second.
How'd you weigh steam?
The gas molecules...
Steam, yeah, how are we going to weigh it? That's the question.
Have we got an echo?
Steam.
Someone's echoing here.
No, you're just not answering my question. So we're talking about weighing steam. We've talked about weighing bouncy balls. Now we seem to be hesitant, we being you, to talk about how we weigh steam.
Gas molecules, like steam, are moving around at 500 meters per second.
And like bouncy balls do. So do bouncy balls move around at 500 meters per second generally?
Imagine the same problem.
Do bouncy balls generally move around at 500 meters per second?
Imagine some bouncy balls doing the same thing.
Imagine them doing them. No, I'm asking if it does, to make it comparable.
What's the question? I missed the start of your question because you interrupted me.
Do bouncy balls move around freely and randomly in all directions at 500 meters per second? Is that clear enough?
Right, if they did, imagine how you...
If they did, but they don't!
But we're trying to model...
But we are not describing gas when we describe bouncy balls. So bouncy balls don't move around freely and randomly at 500 meters per second then?
No, they don't.
So why would you compare gas to them?
Because if they were to...
But they're not.
Like they would...
But they're not.
That's right, so you've got to make that jump to say what...
You've got to make the imagination land jump. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm a realist. I work in the real, physical, natural world. You, on the other hand, being a globe-believing fundy, get teabagged when you tell us to take this to imagination land and imagine that bouncy balls, completely static on the ground, being weighed on scales, are actually moving at 500 meters per second. They're not, rumpus.
And
you think bouncy balls move around at 500 meters per second? Why do you imagine that bouncy balls do that?
Nathan?
Why do you imagine that bouncy balls move at 500 meters per second?
100 meters per second.
Why do you imagine that, Mr. Imagination Land?
That's how gas works.
That gas doesn't work like that, though, does it? You see, gas doesn't behave like bouncy balls because gas moves at 500 meters per second and bouncy balls don't.
If you can stretch your imagination...
How about I stretch my nuts over your face as you lie dying and telling me to take this to imagination land? How about that?
We're all laughing at you, Nathan. The whole...
Laughing at me as I imagine bouncy balls moving at 500 meters per second? I don't spend much time imagining that bouncy balls move at 500 meters per second. That would be something that you do in your imagination land.
The intellect of a root vegetable. So you
Sorry, root vegetables are spending much time imagining bouncy balls moving at 500 meters per second. Let's take a straw poll. Who on the panel spends any time at all imagining that bouncy balls move at 500 meters per second?
Well, I do, but only because
What a wanker. I hate Arwin sometimes. Why would you imagine this?
because it models the atmosphere.
No, gas does not behave like bouncy balls. To say that you're imagining bouncy balls moving at 500 meters per second so that it's like the atmosphere, well, if the atmosphere is moving at 500 meters per second, it would fill the availability of sky vacuum and we'd all be dead. Just imagine bouncy balls moving at high speeds in all directions. Can you do that? Can you stretch your imagination that bouncy balls move freely and randomly in all direction? Now, if the air was bouncy balls that move freely and randomly in all direction, you've got enough imagination for this, right? Then they'd fill the sky vacuum as they moved at high velocity in those directions, outwards into the volume. So just imagine that the air's like bouncy balls, and also imagine, like you do, that bouncy balls move at high speeds in all directions, and then the gas would fill the sky vacuum. Is it more that we should imagine that gas that moves at high speeds behaves more like bouncy balls that's static on scales? Isn't it the other way around, that you're trying to make us believe that gas go down, go boom, boom, as opposed to imagine, why would we do this? It's stupid, that bouncy balls move at 500 meters per second to describe what the air does. I mean, we've just got the air. We could just know that it moves at 500 meters per second in all directions and fills the availability of volume. We don't need to compare it to bouncy balls that don't move at 500 meters per second. That seems stupid.
Bouncy balls come back to you when you throw them, so do gas molecules.
No, they move at high speeds in all directions until they collide with either each other or the walls of the container that they are contained by.
Well, if they're not in a container, then they'll go...
If they're not in a container, they just fill the availability of space that they do have to fill. It's called entropy.
Them back like balls?
No, they don't come back like balls, because balls, if you imagine them moving at 500 meters per second in all directions, and imagine that they've got elastic collisions like gas, can you stretch your imagination that balls, bouncy balls, have got elastic collisions and don't lose any energy? Can you imagine that? Can you stretch your imagination that balls are like gas and have elastic collisions? Can you imagine that ball like an elastic colliding gas? Can you stretch your imagination that far? Imagine bouncy balls behave like gas, expanding in all directions and having elastic collisions, not losing energy. Can you imagine that?
Exactly, that's the model.
Yeah, but bouncy balls don't do that. Gas does, and it would fill the availability of volume, right? So if our air, if all of this cloudy stuff on this cartoon of a ball on my screen, right? If all that was like bouncy balls moving at high speed in all direction at 500 meters per second, then it would fill this black area because it would be moving at high speeds in all directions. Yeah, not down, go boom, boom, all speeds. Just imagine bouncy balls moving at high speeds in all directions. Imagine the bouncy balls that are our air. Imagine they've got elastic collisions and don't lose their velocity like solid bonded snowballs.
I'm pretty
the
sure
model,
the
yeah, you got
balls
it, Nathan.
would fill the availability
Keep up with
of
that, you'll
volume
understand
if
what's
they
going
acted
on.
like gas.
Sorry, go on, Alwyn. You're determined to fund
Rufus, can you show me in the last half hour what you spoke? Can you? I can read that.
You want me to tell you what I've been saying for the last half an hour? Is that what you want?
Yeah, I want to read that, not to tell. Show me some. I want to.
You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
What's a
I
citation?
want to read everything about that what you said somewhere.
I'll give you a scientific. I'll go and get a citation.
About bouncy balls, that things.
Yeah, it's called the Dalton model of atoms and molecules. It's very simple.
When he demonstrated it, did he use solids to demonstrate this principle?
No, the Dalton law.
Sorry, I've got a question.
Clowns
Sorry,
shit.
when he demonstrated it, did he demonstrate it using gas or solid?
He modelled the atoms like bouncy balls.
Using solids or gases?
He modelled gases as bouncy balls.
So as solids then? So not like gases. They didn't actually behave like gases. For example, when he made his demonstration using solids, they didn't expand in all directions at 500 meters per second. You know how you told us to imagine that bouncy balls moved at high speeds in all directions at 500 meters per second? Did his example have an analogous bouncy ball that moved at 500 meters per second?
You're stuttering, Nathan. Why are you stuttering?
I'm not stuttering. I asked if his bouncy balls example had bouncy balls imagined to be moving in all directions, or did they actually do that?
You interrupted me, so I didn't hear the start of your question.
No worries, I'll ask it again. Did the bouncy balls move at 500 meters per second when he showed them in his example?
He modelled them doing that, yes.
Oh, so they modelled as moving at 500 meters per second. I've seen his demonstration, and they definitely were not moving at 500 meters per second. Do you want me to bring up a visual example? Maybe you need to interrupt me. Maybe the middle of my sentence is too damaging when I describe this example, having been modelled with solids, not gases.
I missed the thunder.
Maybe my middle of sentence interrupted your interruption. My bad. Did you stutter?
Bad. So,
but why are you stuttering there, Rumpus? You seem to be stuttering. I concisely detailed somebody making a false equivalence with solids, and you've compared bouncy balls, solid bonded bouncy balls, with gases, but we've got to imagine that they move at 500 meters per second. I asked if his example had them actually moving at 500 meters per second, and you seem to continually fundy mute and interrupt the middle of that statement and question. Were his bouncy balls
Nathan. Well done.
Were his bouncy balls?
Are you
were his bouncy balls moving at 500 meters per
second?
second? When he showed them, were they moving at 500 meters per second, or was that just happening in his imagination? Did his example have imaginary 500 meters per second solids, or did they actually do that?
Who are you talking about when you say he?
You've given us an example, and the example has been demonstrated with little marbles when I saw it. Yeah? Shaking them.
What demonstration?
Your demonstration. This is your example.
I haven't demonstrated bouncy balls or marbles.
Oh, really? So when you claim that gas behaviour is like bouncy ball behaviour, that's not you claiming that then?
A physical one. You sound as though you...
Sorry, you're about to stutter your way through the fact that you are exactly claiming that then.
Are you interrupting? I'm claiming...
Why are you stuttering? You seem to accuse me of stuttering. Now you seem to be stuttering. Yeah, that is precisely what you are claiming. I'll just repeat it nice and calmly. Yeah, you're claiming gas behaviour is like bouncy ball behaviour.
Right, so I haven't given a demonstration, but the gas molecules, of Dalton's theory is that they're moving around like bouncy balls at 500 meters per second. And we have to use that model with people like you, because you...
Dalton never proposed a scientific theory. What's Dalton's law? You dumbass.
That's a gas law.
Yeah, it's not a theory. You said Dalton's theory.
Yeah, he did more than one thing, you moron.
No, he doesn't have a theory. Dalton's law. That's the gas law you said, you fuckwit. What is it?
I never mentioned the law.
Oh, shut up.
What is Dalton's law?
The atomic theory.
That's what we're waiting for.
No, I'm talking about Dalton's theory of the atomic structure of atoms. I didn't mention his gas laws.
Dalton.
We're talking about gas.
Sorry, go on, Adam.
Dalton proposed that atoms were just simply solid balls. It doesn't then go on within that to discuss how gas behaviour, and in him then going, ooh, let me get some bouncy balls out. He discusses the concept of atoms as solid balls. That's what Dalton does in his atomic theory. Then he's got another thing, hasn't he, when he talks about gases, which is to do with partial pressure relationships. But none of it means that they're behaving analogous to bouncy balls.
My God, you actually said something intelligent for the first time ever.
Shut the hell up. You've never said anything intelligent in your entire life. You're a numpty dipshit.
I get that compliment most times I speak. So he's probably got the memory of a goldfish, but there you go.
Yeah.
Adam actually said something intelligent.
Oh, shut up. We're still waiting for you to show looming, right? And then we're waiting for you to show the atmosphere being weighed.
I'll tell you, I'll do that if you admit that.
No, we ain't doing it. And Nick, you're a numpty dipshit. Okay, yes, you're a numpty dipshit. Okay, now we need to see you weighing the atmosphere.
You admit that a container.
We admit that a container is required.
If you wait.
Admit you were wrong, Huey, and then I'll do.
Oh, the fuck up.
Can we call him a god if he?
So just to sum up, we're not going to get a demonstration of the atmosphere being weighed, the oxymoron that is the atmosphere. We're also not going to get cited a definition of looming because he knew he'd lose on both scores. So with that, go on.
But maybe somebody else agreed with him that could be done from bowlers.
Maybe, but that's going to be for another time, because with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Also, link below this video, there is a link to get £50 back for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!